Today, for the very first time, in another video where everyone can get incredibly mad at me and my opinions, we will be listening to, believe it or not, the Beatles, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
All right, man, it's time for us to listen to some nice 60s music, man. We're here ready to listen to some hippie music, if you know what I'm talking about. And we got whatever. I was going to try to do the whole video like that, but that's the first time I've ever tried that out loud, and it's not really working the best. So anyway, hello, everybody, and welcome back to another album review / reaction here on the channel. This is a whim. We are doing this on a whim. There's been zero prep put into this, with the exception of all the prep we put into this video. We were going to film it originally about 1 year ago when Cody came to visit me, and that was right after I had just found out that it was right when I had just come back from... Well, it wasn't right. I think I should have looked before this. It was in either February or March of last year, and it was after I had come back and then started to get into the routine of going into Omaha after being released from the hospital when I was there after I'd found out and was diagnosed with leukemia last December, not this previous December, but December 2023, and I was in the hospital for a large chunk of January 2024, and then when I got out, I think it would have been in March, because it was when I had my really fat face. I'll put a clip of that video in here where I specifically say, we were doing a Beach Boys reaction, and I specifically said, we would listen to Pet Sounds. And I thought I was, for the first time, I was like, I'm going to be listening to Pet Sounds, and then we're going to do Sgt. Pepper's, so they go together, right? It was going to be a great... But in the back of my mind, I always was thinking, like, there's one thing we got to do. We got to do some Beatles. Mm-hmm. And so we were talking about doing the Beatles, and one of us, I can't remember if it was me or you, brought up the idea of doing Pet Sounds at the same time, or on the same day, because I know the history of it, that like the Beatles album or the Beach Boys album Pet Sounds really influenced the Beatles and how they wanted to go in the studio and try to like record something that sounded really good or whatever.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting juxtaposition, I think.
Yeah. Or at least it was very influential to them at the time. And they were going back and forth, I think, several albums before that even too, where they were like, oh, the Beach Boys released this crazy album. Mm-hmm. So it is interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. I just was so sick. And so like literally that was some of the hardest times I went through last year. Happened to be when Cody came to visit me, and we went and bought a bunch of cool records and stuff, which those videos are up on the channel, and our Beach Boys video is up on the channel, but we never got around to filming Sgt. Pepper's. And so now, on the precipice of me going into the hospital very soon to get my bone marrow transplant, which is where I will be soon, for those of you joining the channel, this is your first video, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Patrick, and this is my cousin Cody. No relation, and we are going to be listening to this album. I have never heard this album, and if you ask me what a single song on this album sounded like, I do not think I could tell you one single song.
Really? Have you looked at the track list?
Well, let's look real quick. Let me bring it up here.
So I wonder...
Oh, with a little help from my friends. Okay. Oh, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds is on this one?
Okay, yeah.
Okay, then I definitely know those two.
Okay.
And then, that would be it. Those two.
Okay.
Wait, so track 1 is Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, and track 12 is only Pepper's larger... Oh, it's a reprise.
Yep.
Okay. So we are going to be using Spotify to listen to this. When I typed in Sgt. Pepper's, the first thing that came up was, I assume it's their 2009 remasters.
Yeah.
Is that the... pretty much definitive version of this, Cody?
I assume so. They've been going through and I don't know what you call it, like remixing, I guess.
Yeah.
Some of their albums, and I have Revolver.
Okay.
And I got the remix version. I got it from that $15 Walmart vinyl sale.
Right. Nice. Great kit.
And I don't think Sgt. Pepper's is one of those that has had that, and I think it's because their later albums, they were this was probably made for stereo, whereas stuff before this, like 66 and earlier, was
mono.
Was like primarily mixed for mono, but then when they released it, I think in the United States, they put it out in stereo, or maybe they put it out in stereo in both, but it was like either fake stereo or it was a producer doing the stereo that was not. It was not the main players.
Not the guys. Okay.
They were just cranking out the stereo versions just as a
Interesting.
gimmick almost. And so I think they've been going back and redoing a lot of those albums. They've at least done a couple of them, but I think Sgt. Pepper's, this is probably the definitive.
Let me look here on. So Beatles, by the way, I think they're going to be pretty popular. They have 32,706,000 monthly listeners.
Yeah.
So it seems like they're on the up and up. And they actually have a new single in 2025 called Now and Then. It was just released, and it's a 2025 Grammy winner.
Yeah, we contemplated doing a
we did.
short video
That's
on
right.
that, and then we're like, we can't. We don't have anything to say about this.
Right. For sure. Okay, so let's just look at their albums here. I'm going to look at all of them and just see here. Okay, so they have a thing called Super Deluxe. So I'm just looking at Revolver from 2022. Is that what you got there, Super Deluxe?
No, I think that would have extra tracks.
Okay, so that's not.
And maybe it's also the remixed version, but I wonder if the individual tracks are titled remixed.
Well, there's a 19. There's the. It says Revolver.
I wonder if they put them out.
So on here, it looks like they have Revolver Remastered, and then the only other thing they have is Revolver Super Deluxe from 2022.
Okay, that would be the remixed one. The Super Deluxe has bonus discs, I believe. Yeah, Wikipedia,
it does.
Wikipedia says it's like 161 minutes, but it's just one album. So I
4
think
discs,
I got
discs.
the single disc version of that.
Okay. It says
is
2022 mix on it is what it's called when I look at the songs actually. So okay, interesting. Okay, so, but it does not look like Sgt. Pepper's. So it looks like there's Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, the Super Deluxe Edition, which was released in 2017.
Okay, so I don't think they necessarily remixed it for that. I think it's just
just a
extended.
remaster.
No, I think it's probably just extra tracks.
Well, it says remastered in 2017.
Oh, okay. Is that on Spotify?
Yes, it is. I'm just looking on Spotify. There's 3 different versions of it.
Okay.
It says
let me go to their albums here.
It says the Super Deluxe Edition, the Deluxe Edition, and the Remastered Edition.
Oh, hey, they put out the Get Back Rooftop performance as a separate thing. That's cool. Okay, I see those 3.
So it looks like there's a 2009 remaster. There is, it says Sgt. Pepper Lonely Hearts Club Band Remix. That's the deluxe edition one, it says. I don't see the
Okay, so 2017 remix. Oh, so maybe they did. That was the 50th anniversary. And they did a remix by Giles Martin, who is the son of George Martin, who was their producer.
Okay.
And he's been doing a lot of the remix stuff. So I think they must have. Maybe I just didn't hear about it because it wasn't. Maybe it's not as different, or maybe because it was 8 years ago at this point.
So do a quick. I want to talk about a couple other things here real quick. Yeah. Do a quick wiki search or something and see if the 2017 remaster is better than the 2009 remaster. Because there's a 2017 remaster, it said a new mix. It said, and then 2009 remaster. Or if you want, you could just listen to them and see what you think. But while you're looking that up, you can see what everyone else is saying. I just want to say that here on our channel, we generally get a lot of hate comments because based on my comments that I make while we're listening. So, as I was saying, sorry, I'm going to take these sunglasses off because I'm not a big sunglasses fan. And actually, I'm going to take this off too because I'm also not a big scarf fan. And I'll leave the hat on for now. But anyway, hello, everybody. Patrick's back. So I have not heard this. I know it might be hard for people to believe, and we usually get a lot of comments that are like, it says he says he's an audio engineer and he's never listened to Sgt. Pepper's. Well, it's true. There's a lot of other music out in the world other than just the Beatles. And trust me, I have heard my entire life that the Beatles are fantastic. And I do know a lot of Beatles singles because I grew up with my folks listening to oldies. And so I grew up in the 90s, and in the 90s, oldies was 60s and 70s, basically, and before that, too. And so I am familiar with, I believe, most of the Beatles' big singles. So I have heard that. But now that we just looked at it, you know, and I saw the actual track listing for this, I did not know that With a Little Help from My Friends and Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds were from this particular album. I didn't think I even knew any of the tracks on this, but I'm very curious to see if any of the other ones sound familiar at all. I know I believe I have heard the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band song, because when I was working at a recording studio in Omaha, we worked for 2 years on the Berkshire Hathaway shareholders meeting that they have every year with Warren Buffett. They had we recorded 2 years in a row. We recorded cover versions of a famous song that someone came in and changed the words of the song to be about Warren Buffett and the leaders of. So we
Is
did.
there an album of that?
We only did it twice, and it was 2 songs. It was the YMCA, and one of them was, I believe, the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. And I do have the files for those still somewhere, the original raw files too, which no one else has that but me, because I was the one that edited the multi-track, because we had to multi-track that. So yes, I do have that.
That stuff's great.
Yeah, it's a cool thing I have for sure. But I know we did YMCA, and I believe it was Sgt. Pepper's. I'm pretty sure it was. And so I think when we're listening to that song, I will found it familiar. However, right now I'm sitting here trying to think of what that song sounds like or what the words are or anything like that. And I have literally no clue. No clue.
Okay.
I also do know. Did you find out anything, Cody?
Oh, yeah, it seems like we should go with 2017. It seems like it was pretty well received, and they went back to the original master tapes, which is apparently even better than they originally did on the first stereo recordings. So,
okay.
The only other people are the people that say you should listen in mono, which I think we should probably just go with the new one.
So in that case, then I'm clicking on the Super Deluxe Edition.
Got it.
And we're going to listen to just disc 1.
Yep.
And then when we're done, I would like us to pick a couple, maybe my 2 favorite songs, and we'll listen to the remix version.
Sure.
Just because I think that's awesome that exists.
I think this is the remix, 2017.
Well, but the files are listed differently. If you go back and click on the middle one there, the Lonely Hearts Club Band Deluxe Edition, those are literally just listed as remix.
Remix.
And disc 2 is a whole different disc, it looks like. Whole different songs.
Yeah. As far as I know, the 2017 tracks are all
here. You just right now, you listen to the little bit of pick a song, listen to a little bit of it, and tell me if you think you hear a difference.
Okay.
Because I don't want to hear anything. And while you're doing that, I'm going to open my beverage. So I have my glass here. And the beverage that I have today is a very special one. This will be my first time ever trying this. This is a Pepsi, which I'm not a big fan of Pepsi. Everyone here knows we love our Mountain Dew. But this is a Pepsi Wild Cherry and Cream. I don't know if that's new or not. I don't recall ever having seen this can before. But I thought I like cream soda, and I like cherry Pepsi definitely more than regular Pepsi. And so I thought if this is cherry Pepsi cream soda type thing.
They sound the same to me.
Okay.
If there's a difference, it's not something I would notice, I guess. But
okay.
From what I can tell, like
Oh, hold on. Sorry. Whoa. Holy cow.
What flavor is that?
It's wild cherry and cream Pepsi.
Oh, interesting.
I think it's new, but I'm not too sure. I know they've had cherry Pepsi, and I believe they've had that Pepsi cream.
I don't
cream
think they,
for a while.
think they have.
Okay.
Sounds good to me, though. I'll have to get some.
It is very cream soda-y. It's almost orange soda-y, to be honest.
Interesting. Maybe it's kind of like sometimes I don't know if you ever get a float with cola.
I don't do that very often, but I could see this tasting like that for sure. Yeah. Anyway, we were talking about pop and all this stuff and whatnot. So before we get into this, which okay, so hold on. Let's rewind for a second. I'm aware of the significance of this album. When we did our Pet Sounds reaction last year, we talked about both of these albums a little bit and about how when I was in college and I was studying audio engineering, I we learned a little bit about this album, Pet Sounds, and then we talked about certain things like Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon, but we didn't really sit down and listen to these albums, at least that I can recall. I do remember us doing something with Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon, but as people on the channel here will know, that I didn't remember that at all, and we just recently did a reaction to that, which is still getting some nice hateful comments. But I'll try to be concise with my thoughts here, and I will say too, if every song on this fades out like I anticipate it very well may, I'm going to be incredibly disappointed every time that happens, because I personally hate fade outs. It is my musical pet peeve. I don't think you could do anything else on your song that would make me more angry than fading out. So I won't dwell on it too much, but I'm going to point it out when I notice it. When we listen to Pet Sounds, every single song faded out. Every single one, without question, faded out. And I've never listened to the album since then. I probably won't bother doing so again. Sloop John B, one of my favorite Beach Boys songs, and I think that's definitely the best sounding song on that album. I did go back recently and listen to that album again when I was editing the video before I posted it, I believe a couple of months ago now. So if you're a classic rock fan, classic music fan, classic album fan, we do have several of those. Mostly this channel is based on metal, though, and based on Metallica is how we've been gaining followers, as I've been going through and listening to all the Metallica albums for the first time, which we've now done that. We just have the second disc of Garage Inc. to do, and then we're going to transition into having some conversations about Metallica where we rank them and do those things. But speaking of metal, we've also been going through and sort of doing a bit of a sort of education teaching class to Cody here, because he is not a fan of metal at all either. And I think it's very fun to talk with people who don't necessarily care for certain styles of music, which is what you're all going to do probably with me this whole video. But maybe I'll love it. We'll see. I have some trouble sometimes with the time period something came out. You got to kind of forgive it for this, forgive it for that, whatever. But I have no doubt that it'll sound better than Led Zeppelin's 4, which I think is one of the worst albums I've ever heard. So, but anyway, I just, I'm excited for everything we got going on here. We've got some metal stuff coming up on the channel. We're going through some raunchy discography, which nobody's watching those videos because they don't care about that band, but I implore you to go check that out if you're a fan of heavy music. We've got Dream Theater reaction coming out in the next few days as of us recording this, so it will already be out by the time this is out. I'm going to be doing some reactions to some special albums coming up here just myself, I believe. I've been debating about doing some things before I go into the hospital that I've been putting off for the last few years because honestly, I'm scared to listen to them because they're albums from bands that are so important to me and I have not heard them yet. And if I listen to them and they're bad, I'll be just devastated. So there's a couple of those things I want to record myself. And so we've got some fun stuff coming up on the channel. And then when I go into the hospital, I have to move for 100 days to the city. Right now I live out in the country, and I'm going to be spending 30 days in the hospital, then 70 days at least or around there, living in sort of like a hotel place near the hospital. And I am planning to record content from both of those locations, the hospital and the motel. So hopefully I'm recover fast and we can keep the channel going. But, anyway, doesn't matter. Whoever you are, thank you for being here. If you get mad at us, you leave hateful comments, that's totally fine. Just interact with us somehow. You can even be a little mean if you want. It just depends. Then. Yeah. And I will here. I'll just get it out of the way right away. I don't know if I'll take, but look, I don't have very much hair, so everyone
just
can
line up all the.
Yeah, everyone can get your comments about how I'm bald and stupid. Get those ready to go, because that's what a lot of the comments are. They're not necessarily about the fact that I'm bald. They just throw that in at the end. Balding.
or they refer to you.
You guys should have seen me. You guys should have seen me last year when I was doing the chemo, though. That I was really bald. Yeah. And from what I've heard with the transplant, I'm going to lose all of my hair and be just totally, because I'm going to be exposed to like huge amounts of radiation for 3 days in a row. So it's going to be real fun. So
save up your good insults for.
Yeah. Wait to save the good bald insults to when I'm
right.
like super really bald. Okay, so before we get into listening, though, I think we each have some cool Beatles stuff we were going to show off that we just have acquired over the years. I've got this Beatles shirt that I bought at Walmart, and I've got a couple of records down here that I was going to show off that I've acquired over the years. If you are new to the channel, I collect CDs. I've been collecting CDs basically my entire adult life, and I'm 38 now. And so I have over 3,500 CDs. I have them all loaded onto my Discogs. Actually, I think it's over 3,600 now. But I have them all on my Discogs account, which you can just go look me up there. I think it's Patrick M is what it is. I think I posted a link to that before somewhere here on the channel. But I also collect vinyl when I find interesting stuff, and I like to take a chance on something if it's cheap. And I also like to buy vinyl that looks interesting that I can put on the wall. I just changed all these earlier today, except for the Tears for Fears one up there you can't really see because I just left that one. I only found 5 records to put up.
What's on the top left?
That one?
Yeah.
His name is, it says his name is right above there. I'm not going to move the camera. It's Feliciano.
Oh, okay.
And it just says Feliciano. It's just a dude with a guitar. I think it's a Spanish guitar type of thing, like a gypsy jazz type of kind of thing.
Cool.
Which I do enjoy that style of music.
I recognize the mamas and the papas in the middle.
Yep. And
then
this,
is that
this over here.
Oh, what is that?
This one is Bo Diddley. It's hard to see from this angle, I understand, but this is a sweet Bo Diddley record that looks just badass and cool.
Yeah.
And then, yes, Henry Mancini,
Pink
Panther. And then I just got a generic Peanuts record over here.
Cool.
This one I got really recently, and I was super disappointed because I looked in there, and it's a Greatest Hits of the Supremes record, which is probably worth more than this Peanuts record, but I'm a fan of Peanuts, and so I was disappointed the Peanuts record wasn't in there. But I do have some records here to show you guys. Here, I'm going to take these off again. To show you guys, because I think that there's some fun stuff in here you guys might get a bit of a kick out of. Move the mic away from me a little bit. Okay, so I'm just going to go through these pretty fast. We don't need to dwell on them. So this is the early Beatles. The songs on here are Love Me Do, Twist and Shout, Anna, Chains, Boys, Ask Me Why, Please Please Me, P.S. I Love You, Baby It's You, A Taste of Honey, and Do You Want to Know a Secret? Produced by George Martin. Did he produce most of the stuff?
I don't know if he would have been their producer when they were recording those songs originally, but probably when they put out that album. But he was their producer for.
Okay, and I asked that because of a record that's coming up in a second here. But so anyway, of those songs, just so people know, is Twist and Shout the song, the actual like Twist and Shout, come on, come on, come on, baby? Is that the Beatles?
Yeah.
Holy crap. That just blew my mind. I had no clue that was the Beatles.
I'm trying to think if it's a cover, but I don't think it is. I think it was just kind of their twist.
Their version of the twist, because there was every band did a twist.
Yeah.
And so I've heard that, and I've heard Love, Love Me Do. You know, I've heard that. Other than that, I don't think I know any song on this.
There's some on there that I didn't recognize either, and some that are covers. Can you go down the list again?
Anna, Chains, Boys, Ask Me Why, Please Please Me, P.S. I Love You, Baby It's You, Taste of Honey, and Do You Want to Know a Secret?
Yeah, those are very early songs, and I think some of those at least are covers. They were doing a lot of covers in their first album or two.
All bands were at this time.
Yeah, So that's, I don't know if that must be some sort of U.S. compilation, maybe of songs that weren't released over here, and then they released them later in the '60s, something like that.
Possibly, yeah. Just
their catalog is very confusing for their first like 5 albums because like the canonical, like their canon of albums is all their British ones, but that's not what was released in the U.S. Like we just got completely different albums.
Interesting. Okay.
And then eventually they lined up, and kind of all their most revered stuff is all the same, but yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Okay, so then I've got some weird stuff here. This is George Martin and his orchestra play Help.
Okay.
Now, I believe this man here is George Martin.
Okay. I guess I didn't know. I don't know what the heck that would be.
I don't know. It says
George Martin trying to make a buck on the side or something.
It says George Martin and his, well, it's not George Harrison, right?
Mm-mm.
The Beatles are, okay, let's see if I can get this, okay? Ringo Starr, Paul McCartney, John Lennon, George Harrison.
Yes.
Okay. But this is George Martin and his orchestra play Help and other instrumental versions of the Beatles songs by their brilliant recording director, it says.
Weird.
So, yeah, interesting. And this has Help, Another Girl, You're Going to Lose That Girl, I Need You. You've Got to Hide Your Love Away, The Night Before. That's all side one. Then Ticket to Ride. That's a Beatles song, too. She's got a ticket to ride. Auntie's gin theme. That's a nice hat, cap. Tell me what you see in scrambled egg. Weird.
Scrambled egg is the original title for Yesterday.
Really?
Yeah.
Scrambled egg.
That's weird because Yesterday was, I don't know. Yeah, that must be what that is. Yeah. Cause the way the Beatles write is fascinating. I don't know how common this is, but like they seem like they're writing the melodies and they're just kind of shoving in lyrics wherever they can.
I think that's actually probably way more common than most people think it is.
Yeah. It was watching the Get Back documentary was really, really cool. It's probably like the most candid look you'll ever get at anyone like recording something.
Interesting.
And it's, the Beatles, so it's even more
really very cool. Yeah.
And so it's to see their evolution of the lyrics on stuff. It is really, really interesting.
Okay, so I'm just going to rapid fire through some of these here. Okay. This is the Beatles Songbook by the Holly Ridge Strings, conductor Stu Phillips. Just an interesting.
So that's like a cash in.
Yeah, interesting cover here.
Yeah.
Just thought it was kind of cool. Anyone can see the titles there.
Yeah.
And then I've got another one that's kind of like that. This is Chet Atkins picking on the Beatles.
What are the Beatles there? Are they like little matchsticks? Is it zoomed in?
It does look like a matchstick, but I think it's just some sort of like a.
Sorry. Oh, like a drumstick or something.
It almost looks like a drumstick, but I think it's just a weird artistic thing. Like, okay. I don't know if it's necessarily anything specific.
Yeah.
And there's nothing on the back that would give you any sort of an indication of...
That's cool. You like Chet Atkins, don't you?
I do. I think he's a fantastic guitar player, old-timey country guitar player.
Yeah.
Then I think everything else I have is an actual Beatles thing. First I have is Temporary Secretary, which we have done a reaction to on the channel before.
Yeah. We loved it.
It completely blew my mind. That came out of a Beatle.
I do think you should throw that whole album on sometime. I don't think we should ever record it, but it's interesting. He gets a little new wavy at times.
Sure. Well, I mean, he was clearly having fun with the synths. So,
Yep.
Okay, then I've got some really terrible quality. This is White Album.
Nice. Hey, it's got a number on it too.
Is that?
That's
Oh yeah, is that a rarer thing?
That just means it was an original pressing.
And I'm not sure.
Essentially, I don't know exactly.
It's a double disc
the White Album
set,
I have.
right?
The White Album I have is from the 70s, and it does not have a number on it.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so the record that's in here is Rubber Soul.
Oh, nice.
No, that's not nice. I don't have Rubber Soul.
Well, wait, but it's not actually in there. It's just shoved in the. Do you have any? Is there anything in the sleeves?
Well, I have. This is the Beatles. It must just is it the Beatles? Is the White Album?
Yeah.
But it's is it a double-sided album?
Yeah. So do you just have one of them?
I just have one. I just have side 101 or side 4, and then side 3.
Oh, okay.
And then I have Rubber Soul.
Okay.
So,
well, yeah, Rubber Soul is a good album.
Yeah, and these were just bought at garage sales and stuff over the years.
Yeah.
And I think all the Beatles stuff was in when I would buy like a batch of records. I don't think I ever specifically picked it out and bought them. I mean, I would if I saw them, because I know Beatles
Do you have
records
the poster and pictures in there at all?
I don't think so.
Probably
I think
not.
it's
It
literally
looked like it was
just
all ripped open. Yeah.
It's literally just that, and then the middle thing.
Hey, it's cool. It's cool that you have a numbered copy though.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. What's the number?
Yeah.
Maybe it's really low.
And it doesn't look like a low number. 1,192,452.
Okay. All right.
There you go. Now everyone.
I should clarify. I don't think it necessarily means it's a first pressing, but at some point they did stop putting numbers on them. So the one
it does look like a stamp, like it was some sort of a stamp or something, which is kind of
yeah.
And then this is. Oh, actually, interesting. Okay, I do have a copy of Rubber Soul.
Oh, maybe you got the White Album.
Let's look. That would be really awesome. That would be so cool. No, this is Revolver. Not even joking. This is Revolver.
All right, well.
The Beatles collection is growing. And so this is just this is horrific. This is all broken. It's
every copy of that. Okay, I've got a Rubber Soul. But I got a special version. I got Rubber Zeus.
What? Huh.
Someone just wrote their name on it.
Oh, that's really funny. Oh, that's really cool.
But anyway,
dude, that's pretty badass. Actually.
Also, these Rubber Souls never I have 2 or 3 of these. They're all completely ripped in half.
Okay, so that's just how they are.
It's just like paper tape that they sealed them with.
And then the last thing I have is Beatles. This is what the 1967 through 1970, the blue one.
Nice.
I know there's a blue one and a red one, and this is greatest hits, right?
Yeah.
It's not. Yeah, it's not like a collected works. It's just a greatest hits, right?
Yeah. It might have included some more rarities. I'm not exactly sure. They had so many. I don't know if they build it as a greatest hits or if it's supposed to be like a retrospective kind of a thing, something like that.
And these are actually both the correct records. So,
oh, nice.
So there you go. That's that.
They just, in one of the most unnecessary releases, they just re-released both those albums, the Red and the Blue album.
I saw that was the most recent 2 things they had on their Spotify.
Yeah, and they like remastered them, but then it's like you're remastering individual tracks
and not
from random albums. It's weird. So now I think some of the best way to listen to some of those tracks is from that album.
Oh, that sucks.
And then they put out like a third disc on each one of them. It was a weird. They're running out of things to do.
Yeah.
You know.
And then the only Beatles CDs I have are these 2. It's their sets, which are actually really cool.
Yeah, I love
there's
those
so many
anthology
songs.
Series.
And I have I think 1 and 3.
Yeah.
Don't have 2. So.
Keep an eye out for 2.
I know.
Keep an eye out for 1 too, because
you told me that
is scratched up.
It's pretty bad, yeah.
But I love listening to those because the booklets that come with them are track by track, tell you where it was recorded, what the deal was. Like there's a paragraph on each track.
Oh, they're very cool.
That's cool. I love being able to listen to something and read along something with it. That isn't just like lyrics.
I agree. It's really cool when that happens.
I usually load up Wikipedia, just read about an album as I'm listening to it. But yeah,
for sure.
Those are very good releases, and they also, I think, each one of those had a new track on it. Like,
oh, cool!
The first new Beatles stuff that they put out. That song that they just put out now and then. That came from that same session.
Oh, and these are all the way from back in '95. It says.
Yep.
So that's really cool.
Yeah,
I thought they were newer than that. So
it's kind of interesting to listen to the Now and Then release. That was their most recent song, and those because the way that they isolated voices back then is so much worse than how they do it now.
Sure.
And so like they actually did a better job. Like the one that they just released, they couldn't release back then because the source material was so bad, but it ended up sounding really good.
Interesting. That's really cool. I like stuff like that.
Yep.
We did a lot of not a ton, but we did some restoration stuff at the studio when I was working there.
Yeah.
And it was never like going in multi-track stuff, really.
Okay.
But no, that's not true. We did a couple multi-track things, but for the most part, it was usually like someone brings in a vinyl record that was recorded, right, or lots. We did several like reel-to-reel tapes because we were one of the only studios that had a guy working there that knew how to do that. Because in Omaha, a lot of the recording studios, the big ones are all still run by old dudes who've been doing it for a long time. But if you look up any recording studio in Omaha, if it's not like the Warehouse, Baseline, well, it used to be Studio B, but the Studio B is not around anymore. That's the one I used to work at. If you look at any of the big studios, a lot of them are just run by younger dudes now, and they would not necessarily be able to do restoration stuff like that. So
yeah, sure.
But
if you're going to open a studio now,
you don't.
You're not going to have all that analog equipment. Right?
You'll do much better if you can make your own beats. I promise you that.
You also don't need as much space.
No, I can do it all from my basement. But that's all my Beatles stuff, and I know you've got a couple things there.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't gonna like bring up all my Beatles albums. For some reason, I don't own Sgt. Pepper's, which is weird.
Okay, is it a more rare one to find, or
no? Not really. I mean, it's one of their biggest albums.
Sure.
I used to have our Aunt Connie's copy of it that had her name written on it.
Interesting. Okay.
But I gave it back to my dad, so I think he has it now. But I need to get a copy of that. I do have the White Album. Like Super Deluxe 4-disc version. So it's the Beatles and Esher demos. And the cool thing about this is it came with basically it's like an unplugged version of the album. Like they did a session at who's it was George Harrison's house. They went there and they did a session of just all acoustic versions of the songs, like as a demo tape before they recorded the actual album. And so it's just a version of the whole album with just acoustic instruments.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
And that was the first time that those, I think, had been heard when they put that out a few years ago. And then I've got the Let It Be 5 LP edition.
Wow.
So,
what's their most famous album?
probably Abbey Road.
Oh,
which is
we haven't
on your
even
shirt.
mentioned that one. Yeah, the one on my shirt. Right, sure.
And this is cool. They put this out after the Get Back documentary, where they remade the original like concept for the album, which was going to be titled Get Back. And so there's a version of the Get Back album in here, which is the 1969 Glyn Johns mix.
Oh, interesting.
And I don't know if it was, I assume that means it was mixed back then, maybe just shelved. I'm not exactly sure. So there's like slight differences. It was before Phil Spector came in and added all his crap to the tracks that nobody really liked. And then there's just other, demos and stuff on here. So yeah, those are the only two I grabbed because those are the only two really interesting things I had. I got really good deals on those. They were like $30 and $40 a piece, I think.
That's great. That's really cool. It's really interesting. I told you this. We were joking about it the other day, I think, when we were talking, and I mentioned that I saw a meme or something online the other day that said, if the Beatles were a band and this was like right now, currently, and this was their final year, they would have only started in 2018. Which is like crazy, an insane thing to think about. So let's just talk real quick. And I don't know if I've ever talked to you about this before, but like, what do you think about the like legacy of the Beatles and the fact that they like even that stuff you were just saying about like they did this show in his house and it was recorded and like that was kept. Like most bands would ditch that stuff.
Right.
Especially in the 60s when it was not easy to go record stuff. Like you couldn't just record it on your computer and have save the demos on a hard drive,
I think what it was is they were so revered at the time and then they broke up. And it was like they were gods when they broke up, and anything that existed out there, someone was going to hold on to it.
Okay, so they were popular. I mean, obviously they were at their time. I've seen the Arsenio Hall show or whatever, where people are freaking out, and when they land on the planes and people are freaking out, and women are passing out and stuff. I've seen that. And
to look at them at that point in their career, in 1963 versus like 1969. Which is 6 years later, they look like completely different guys. They have completely different attitudes. The media around them is completely different. The fan base is completely different. Like there's, it was young girls when they came over to America. And then by the end, they were just like considered art gods, And
which
to
is
do all that
so
in 6
crazy
years,
to go from that to that is so crazy.
All in their 20s.
Yeah, that is... I guess that in and of itself is really interesting, but then to continue being considered like the greatest musical act of all time, which is really what a lot of people. And I know I want to definitely make sure I put stuff into perspective when we listen to it, and be like, okay, well, that's everybody else saying this. I don't know if they thought they were the greatest musicians on the planet when they were making it and stuff, but like, it's really interesting. I mean, the Beatles are the most famous band ever, probably.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, like, nothing comes as close to this as possible. Like, nothing. So it's, like, really interesting.
And I don't know if, like, this is still, like, early days of rock and roll, like, it feels like they will be the biggest band of all time forever.
Yeah.
100 years from now, is that still going to be the case? I don't know. We still have people alive today that were remembering the Beatles being the biggest thing.
That's
true. And those are the people that have been telling us our whole lives the Beatles are the best band of all time.
That's true. Will that stop once that generation is gone? That's a good point.
I mean, I'll tell my kids they are. You probably wouldn't tell your kids they are.
No. Well,
they're going to grow up thinking, I don't even know.
So far, neither of us has any kids, so we'll worry about that when we get there.
Yeah.
But, and actually, my whole process will probably make me sterile anyway. So, but, no, so everyone calm down, okay? There won't be, future generations won't have to worry about future Patrick Musilek generations.
No, the kids that grow up watching your videos, though.
Oh, those poor guys.
They're going to hate the Beatles.
Which it is funny because we do have some people, which, by the way, I haven't mentioned this yet, but we do have a Discord as well, which I will leave a link to in our the description of this video. It's usually the first thing I put there, but there's a lot of cool people on there, and I really enjoy. It's not something that is just flooded. Like right now, we're still a small enough channel that it's not just like a flood of people just hating each other or anything like that. There's only I don't know if you can tell how many people are joining this Discord, but we're getting close to I think 6,000 subscribers on the channel, and it can't be more than 500 people on Discord, right?
No,
it was only a very small number, and so you can everyone on there is super nice, and we have conversations and do polls about what to listen to next. This was something we just decided to do on a whim because Cody and I had time, but some of the other guys we react with didn't have time today. And I kind of been wanting to do this Beatles thing forever, and I've been thinking about them a little bit more recently because I saw that meme that they would have only started in 2018, and I'm just like, bleh.
And if you make a nice effort post in the Discord, sometimes we'll read it on the videos if it's relevant to what we're recording.
Absolutely, yeah. And speaking of that, I do want to bring up Chris Parker is one of the other guys we do reactions with here on the channel, and I told him that we were going to be doing this, and I told he is a fan of the Beatles as well, but not super big fan, but he at least knows their music, and so I told him if he wanted to write a little paragraph about his thoughts of the Beatles, I would read it out.
Okay.
And so here is his paragraph. There are a few Beatles songs I quite like, but nothing especially noteworthy, and I do my best to appreciate what they did for production, but as with anything, it's difficult to do so having not lived at the time. And otherwise, I don't care about them at all. And then he said, and I quote, and Paul McCartney's solo work is trash, to which both me and Cody were disappointed because temporary secretary has left a lasting impression on me, having only heard the song once. So
yeah, I think that I don't think it's super controversial to hate on Paul McCartney.
Okay.
But
Sure.
It's they were perfect as a band together, and then when they split, it's like people are like, oh, Paul's just making Paul music, he's just making all this happy love songs, and Lennon's just singing about war. And then I think maybe George Harrison is probably maybe the most revered because he didn't put out that much stuff before he died.
Oh, interesting. When did he pass away?
Oh, like 94 or something like that.
Okay.
But he didn't crank out albums in the same way that Paul did, as far as I know. But right when they split in 1970, I think he put out a triple album that was really highly regarded, and I think maybe considered the best. It's called All Things Must Pass.
Interesting. Does he have any songs I would know?
Yeah, on All Things Must Pass.
A triple album? That's pretty awesome. It probably all fit on one CD today, but that's still pretty cool.
Right. The third album of All Things Must Pass is like a jam session. It's really
okay.
It was kind of included as like a bonus. It has
it's really cool though for the time. Really,
it is cool. Yeah. My Sweet Lord, and then What Is Life? The one where he talks about Hare Krishna.
Oh, I thought.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I can kind of hear something in my head, in the back of my head, but I can't think of the song totally. But it's funny you say John Lennon too, because when I think of the Beatles, I don't think of John Lennon. I'm not a big fan of John Lennon, just the little bit that I know of him. And I personally think that the whole hippie movement and culture really did a bad number on our country, and we're still feeling the effects from, even though I'm not an expert on it by any means. But I think if you look, the reaction to World War II was a strong reaction, and then the children who grew up based on the people who were involved in that, I think were kind of screwed up too. So, which whatever, I'm not saying anything new, but
takes on the Vietnam War.
It wasn't necessary, or whatever. I don't even know what the hot take there would be. But
well, apparently your hot take is that it was good and we should have supported it.
No, I don't think I was saying that at all. If that's it's not. I don't know. I wasn't saying anything about the war. I was just saying that hippie culture, I think, screwed up a lot of stuff that we're still feeling their effects of. But I was going to bring up Apoptigma Berserk, one of my favorite electronic groups. One of my favorite lines of all time is the line that starts their album Rocket Science, which is one of my favorite albums of all time. And the line is, "Imagine there's no Lennon. It might be hard, but give it a try." So, yeah, I know.
Whoa.
Which, a fantastic album, by the way. Everyone should go check that out. And if you are a fan of the Beatles, you actually might enjoy it. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But I just want to let everyone know that like I kind of understand a little bit the gravity of this, and the fact that I'm here with all of my musical knowledge and haven't heard this album before, I think is a cool special thing. So I'm going to try to do this reaction justice. I'm going to try to, I will tell you if I don't like it, which I probably will be chunks of this that I don't care for. And if every song fades out, I'm going to hate the whole thing regardless. Yeah. So I do see my fade out board on the other side of the room. So I might not go get it. And I dropped my piece of chalk down here earlier too. Dear. So I don't know if we'll need it or not. Maybe they'll surprise the crap out of me. And that's why this is revolutionary. They're the first band to be like, no fade outs. While the Beach Boys, we should mention that too. I am aware a bit of like the kind of back and forth between the Beatles and the Beach Boys and like the recording and stuff and like who could release the better album or whatever. I think at the time it was.
Pet Sounds came first and I think inspired the Beatles to get a little more experimental.
Okay, but this was not the album.
I think this is the first album after Pet Sounds.
Okay, so this is the like sort of response to that.
Yeah, and this album kind of marks a separate. It's a pretty smooth transition, but I would say that this album is really like they're strictly a studio band. They're doing it. It was originally supposed to be like a concept album, which is why you have this Reprise thing at the end.
But it's not a concept album though.
I wouldn't describe it as that, but that was the original idea.
Okay.
Was that it was about this like fake band, this Lonely Hearts Club band. I don't really know exactly what it was supposed to be, but
it sounds kind of cool though. But
yeah, it is kind of cool. But it's definitely not a concept album in the same way that Pet Sounds was.
Sure.
But I don't know. I guess what I'll say about the Beatles legacy is that, so I've never let that taint their music for me. Their music has always been enjoyable. I don't think they're pretentious in the same way that you might say Pink Floyd is or something like that. And so just try not to let like greatest band of all time influence.
I don't think I will, and I don't know if I would really anyway.
Usually you don't.
Right. But the thing is, like, for me, the hard part of this is going to be like, I don't know how good it's going to sound like sonically. Like, I was not very impressed with Pet Sounds, and to be honest, when I went back and edited the video, I was much less impressed even than when we did it the first time. I think I was not. I don't care for the way that album sounds really at all. I don't think, now maybe had I been, I'm sure if I was living at the time, it would be way different. But with hindsight, looking back on it now, with everything I've heard throughout my entire life, I don't personally think that it sounds very good.
I think as we do more of these classic albums, it'll be interesting to see, because if you listen to 10 albums from the 60s that are highly regarded, then you can start to be like, oh, this is better than the 9 other things we listen to.
Right. And I think I agree. And I like that idea. And I definitely want to do more classic stuff on the channel. The problem is, and I should say this too, we're not at the beginning of the video anymore. We're 50 minutes in, but like I would be shocked if we can use the music from this album in the video. So I'm going to try in everything and every video we have on the channel. The goal is to include the music that we're listening to, which 9 times out of 10 means we can use it. And if you hear the music in this video, that means all ad revenue from this video goes to the Beatles, not to me. That's how our channel works. Yeah, they do. Yeah. And which, by the way, the Beatles, Paul and Ringo are still alive then, right? Okay. Yep. And Ringo still does stuff. I still see him every now and then in pop culture doing stuff.
Yeah, Paul does stuff too. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, I don't think I see him as much as Ringo, but I don't know.
Paul has kind of like, I probably see Paul more. Paul was just on SNL.
I saw that just a couple days ago. Yeah.
But Paul has kind of had control of the narrative of the Beatles story since John died, just over the last like 40 years.
Okay.
Because it was basically them too, and so.
When did John die?
In the 80s.
In the 80s. Okay.
Yeah, maybe 1980. I'm not sure.
And when was Imagine released? I'm sorry, I just don't know this stuff.
I don't know. All this stuff was put out in the 70s.
Okay. Okay.
So Paul has kind of he speaks a lot about the Beatles, and everything that's put out these days, it has to be approved by the 2 widows and then the 2 living Beatles.
Okay.
So it was kind of like surprising when they put out the Get Back documentary. Everyone was like, oh, how Paul doesn't like to show the dark side of the Beatles. He wants everyone to think that it was everyone was happy, and Paul wasn't doing anything wrong, and you know, but they put that out, and it made them look pretty good, I would say.
Okay.
And that's probably why they put it out. But that was for the reason why that Let It Be documentary was never re-released until just recently. I think it was Paul didn't want it re-released or something like that. But
Okay.
he doesn't really. It's tough. It's, you know, people ask him questions all the time, and he'll say, "Oh yeah, this is the reason we broke up," and you know, 30 years ago he said something completely different. It's like,
right. So it's
there's been so
hard
much like conflicting stuff over the years that it's hard for like Beatles historians, which is a thing, to get things right. You can't just go based off the word of one 80-year-old man that remembers what he was doing in his 20s, you know?
Right.
Because
yeah,
the
that's
other
true.
two of the four are not here to give their side of the story.
Yeah.
And so it's a shame that John passed.
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't know where I was going with that, but
no, I appreciate that. I do, because the more it's just so weird talking about the biggest band on the planet and not really knowing anything about them is really interesting. I don't know. So, all right, let's get into this, but I believe we will be pausing between the songs to talk, unless there's any songs that go together. But
maybe the last two.
Okay. So, my Spotify. Oh, it says. Oh, hold on. My mother upstairs just started playing music. Hold on.
We were just talking about.
Hold on. Hey, Mom! You gotta shut the music off. Here, hold on. I'll call her. That's so funny. Right now, she's listening to "Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas" by Denzel Sachs.
Hello.
Hey, I'm so sorry. I love you so much, but you can't listen to music while we're doing a reaction.
Okay.
Because we have to use
why.
it. We have to use it. We have to do it while I have to use the Spotify to listen to the music we're doing.
Okay.
So it's not like you're not doing anything wrong. I see you're listening to "Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas" right now, and I hate to take that away from you, but we're literally just getting ready to start listening to my first ever Beatles album. So.
Okay.
So okay, sorry, Mom, love you.
Okay.
All right, bye.
Bye.
I crushed her heart.
Oh man.
Okay, we're gonna do track 1, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. I think I will know this one. Remastered 2017. 25 million plays. In 3, 2, 1.
They're tuning up. Crowd's filing in.
Mm-hmm.
This is like the remnants of their concept.
The concept. Whoa. Wow, that bass is low.
It was 20 years ago today.
Just screaming.
Sgt. Pepper taught the band to play. They've been going in and out of style, but they're guaranteed to raise a smile. So may I introduce to you the active number of these years, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
Well, that's right. We brought in a horn section too
Oh yeah.
when we were recording the Warren Buffett version of this. We had a guy play trumpets. Dude, this is like the Black Keys,
Yeah.
like early Black Keys stuff. It is. It's like garage rock.
Yeah, you're right.
The like dirtiness of that guitar on the right, I'm shocked.
Yeah, it's pretty heavy.
The only thing that really sucks is that the drums are on the left side. I hate that. I mean,
Yeah, I'm kind of
understand
surprised
it.
that's the case.
I understand it,
remix.
but yeah. Now his voice is double tracked, spread left and right. Unless that's two Beatles. That's just Paul, right?
I think that was John.
That was John
This is
N.
Paul.
Wait, so that was John just now?
I believe so. I don't know.
That's all right. You don't have to know everything.
Yeah.
The clapping is in stereo, I think.
Oh, we'll go right into the next song.
Okay, we are. Yep, we're still going. Okay, and this
So
is...
do you know this song from the Joe Cocker version?
I don't know.
Or from the...
With a little help from...
do you know this from the Wonder Years?
I think so, yes.
So that was Joe Cocker doing... He had a really big hit with
Okay.
the cover of this.
So the bass has now moved over to the right side. And the drums are in the middle. Dude, that kicks... The drums sound awesome, actually.
Yeah.
That sounds like it could... I don't know how many mics they used. This sounds phenomenal, honestly. Like, this is...
He's impressed.
This is literally like billions of years ahead of that Beach Boys album. Like it's coming from a completely different place.
Oh, man.
Now maybe they didn't have access to the files the way they did for this. You know what I mean? For the
Yeah, maybe. Suck it, Brian Wilson.
definitively, you're done, son. Sit down.
It will be interesting to go back and listen to. I don't know if we should listen to a mono version of this or like
Yeah,
the
I want to
2009
try it.
version.
Maybe we'll see.
Yeah.
It's weird to have the bass on the side, but honestly, like with as busy as the bass part is, everything sounds so crisp, which is nice. The vocals sound fantastic too. I love the spread wide part, the background.
Yeah.
So who's that singing the lead vocal here? Not this part. We might not be listening to the same thing either.
We are.
But I can't tell you, but I know.
I don't know. It sounds like for John, I guess. It sounds weird. It sounds like he's putting on a voice.
Yeah, it does. I have definitely heard this version of the song, but not mixed this way on headphones.
Yeah.
I'm just shocked at like the clarity of everything. Not really. I mean, and again, I don't know how much that is the. This is the remix. You said, right?
It is. It is the remix. And supposedly they went back to the original
The master tapes. Okay.
And I think they used some sort of new isolation technology.
Sure.
To pull stuff out.
Man, it makes me wish that everything could be re-recorded this way.
Because nobody has the budget to go back and redo all
No.
these old albums the way the Beatles do, you know?
Oh, it's over. God, that's going to be my biggest... That's going to be the shock to me. We're not going to even have literally enough time to talk about what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Okay,
and
so
maybe we should do more shutting up and talking
more
afterwards.
listening. You're absolutely 100%. Sorry, everybody. Okay, that was an interesting song. Let's go hear what that other version sounds like on the other album. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, well, it's fresh.
While it's fresh. So go to the the remastered 2009.
2009.
Yeah.
We'll do that same song.
Correct. With a little help from my friends. In 3.
Hold on. No, I'm not
sorry.
I'm not even on the albums page. There we go. So this will be in stereo, I believe.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I'll know right away if it's any different. So.
Yeah.
All right. In 3, 2, 1. Holy crap.
It does sound different.
What would you think if I sang out a tune? Would you stand up and walk out on me? Lend me your ears and
It's not that different, really. It is.
Yeah. I'm trying to tell if they repositioned any of the instruments.
Yeah, his vocal here is to the left a little.
The bass is still on the right.
Bass is on the right. The drums are in the middle.
Yeah. And this is a remastered one, so it should sound as good as it could have, I guess.
Right.
But not remixed, I guess.
what do I do when my love
The kick drum has nothing to it. So the kick drum is completely different on the new one.
Interesting.
I wouldn't even be surprised if they didn't cheat a little bit.
I don't think they did, but who knows?
But it sounds way better in that new one.
Yeah.
Also, the background vocals are not spread wide.
Oh yeah, are they just
There's
on the
like more
left?
reverb on the right side. It sounds like they found an extra part. The new stuff sounds like they found an additional track of Paul and just used it to
Yeah.
make wide vocals.
They could have.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if they did anything like taking different takes and
Yeah.
mixing them in or anything like that. What I would love is a documentary on the remixing
How they made this.
process. And I don't know if they did anything like that.
Let us know in the comments.
Yeah, if there's anything we can watch.
This is interesting. Like I would, if we were listening to this, I would not like it as much as what we just heard. Like that is much more high fidelity in my opinion.
Cool.
Like the other mix, everything has such clarity to it.
Yeah.
This has like a kind of a crazy reverb on the right side that has lots of high frequencies in it, which is not in the other one. But the vocals are actually spread wide on that one, like Paul's part. Or I'm not sure who's singing what, but
I just appreciate the fact that they had the confidence to remix it when it's like, this is the most perfect album of all time. You don't mess with perfection, you know?
Right.
And they're like, no, we're going to do it. I think it was well received.
Yeah, I would hope so. The other one sounds better than this. So, like, I mean...
And they didn't change the soul of the song.
No. Nope. But the other one sounds way more modern, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I could tell you were surprised that it was recorded in the 60s, you know?
Yes, shocked. I wish... Oh, sorry, let's go back to the other one.
Go back to...
I wish that Beach Boys album sounded like that.
Yeah.
I wish all the Tommy James and the Shondells... Because I love, by the way, anyone watching this, I love Tommy James and the Shondells. And I have several remixed versions of most of their catalog. I mean, a majority of it. Because they released it on their... just like... big collections you can buy, and there's a new remaster of it that was done much more recently that was a European release, and I've been looking for it, but I can't find it for like less than $50, but it's got like, they have an original album series, classic series, okay, whatever, it doesn't matter, but there's a newer one that includes like 3 additional albums of theirs that weren't included on the original albums classics series, which is five classic albums basically. But those remasters are all screwed up because like their singles aren't mixed the same way as every other song on the album. Like the singles, like legally they couldn't release, you know, or some kind of crap like that.
Like they're worse?
Much worse. Yeah. And so it's really interesting, but like there's so much awesome creativity that came from that band, and maybe that's what we'll find here. I'm sure. Otherwise they probably wouldn't have lasted. But Tommy James and the Shondells, their earlier career, there's just so much crazy, amazing like keyboard stuff and weird things in there. And
I've only heard their hits. Maybe I should go back and
I
really like them.
The song I think of the most is Mirage. They have a song that's really cool, but even their big songs too. You know, like one of their biggest ones is I
Think We're Alone Now.
Yes, right, and that has whispers and stuff in it too, which at the time was not super common, and just a really simple guitar, right?
I always love that. Everything I've heard from them, I've probably only heard 4 songs. Actually, I have their greatest hits. I've listened to it at least once.
Their anthology one with the purple on the front.
It's like a red cover.
Oh, okay, that's different than the one I have.
I think it was I found it a couple times, so I think it was a popular one.
Yeah, their famous one it's just called Tommy James and the Shondells Anthology. It's a double disc set.
Oh,
and that's to me like the definitive mix versions of that I've heard so far, but I haven't heard these newer ones.
Okay.
But yeah, they also sing Hanky Panky, which is like that was their first big single from their first album.
Yeah.
Which is way different. But then they also go into the 80s, Moni, and they also go into the 80s with Dragging the Line, which is one of my favorite songs of all time. Them, huh? Dragging the line.
That's a cool song too. That reminds me of like Manfred Mann or something like that.
Yeah, yes, and that was them. And I mean, they also did Crimson and Clover, and they also did
that one has a crazy effect on it.
Yeah.
Crimson and Clover. Yeah, that's a great impression.
But anyway, that whole band, like every song they have is really cool, and they have this really cool song called Mirage, where they're talking and it's like a really neat song, and all of a sudden they go, wait a second, like there's like everything kind of stops and it goes, wait a second. It's like really cool. It's if you know, you know, and if you're a fan of the Beatles, I'm sure you probably like that. But anyway, I would give anything I have to get their whole discography redone like this. And this is only one Beatles album. I don't know if they've treated everything else with the care, but
Well,
From now on, I will never listen to any Beatles stuff, just with 2 songs here, other than this, like these remixes.
yeah, we need to figure out which other albums were remixed, and then listen to those. Now.
Absolutely, as long as we can include the audio in this video. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry, everybody. I'm just
All right.
I'm excited because this is like really much better than I thought it was gonna be.
All right, so we got Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds.
Okay, which is one that I am aware of. This is the other one I know. Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds,
Yep.
right?
And you know what the title spells out? LSD.
Oh, I didn't know that. Is that like a thing?
I believe that was what they're getting out there. I think that's
really
one of those
funny.
things where one year Paul will say, "Oh yeah, it means LSD," and then 10 years later he'll say like, "No, that doesn't mean LSD."
That's interesting. That's
who
kind of.
knows?
I kind of find that funny though. Like it's kind of fun. Like
I
you know the
think
quirkiness.
yeah, and I think the Beatles had a very like laissez-faire, like, oh, we don't care very much about
Right.
this stuff. We're just
Which is
making cool music.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I guess there's reasons more than just the fact that their music is cool. Like people genuinely must like them, I would assume. So
They're fun to watch documentaries about. They're fun personalities. I mean, they made movies at the time. They're a fun band.
yeah. Okay, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, the 2017 remastered version in 3, 2, 1. Ooh, interesting.
Yeah,
With that-
it's one of those notes is on the right.
Which
I
they
don't know what
couldn't.
that instrument is.
It's kind of a keyboard, right?
I guess it's almost like a harpsichord.
It sounds like that thing Grandma had in the attic. Remember that that air
little
organ?
Yeah.
That air pet organ. Wow, the way they had the reverb on there and it slowly like was bloomed out. Who's this singing? John?
This is John. Yeah.
He sounds awful. He just it sounds like he's whining. It sounds like he's crying while he's singing.
I think, yeah.
Wow, massive. Massive. Dude, this is so good. This sounds so awesome. Holy crap. Those guitars are so cool. This literally sounds like a modern Black Keys record.
Yeah.
That is killing me. You're killing me, Smalls.
We found something. We found a classic album that Patrick can get behind.
I'm shocked. And also, so far, no fade outs, by the way, too.
Yeah. I've never been a fan of John's vocals, like his nasally vocals, as much either.
Okay.
But he doesn't always sing like that.
I mean, it's not the worst thing I've heard at all. And this is Paul then? Or is that still John?
I think that's Paul.
It's kind of hard. It's hard to tell.
It kind of sounds like John, just with a different effect.
Massive. So Paul is playing bass and singing.
Yeah.
John played
Guitar,
guitar
I guess. I don't know.
and piano, if there's any piano.
Yeah.
But then Ringo's the drummer, so that means George did what?
George played guitar.
Oh, guitar. Okay.
So I guess I don't know what John was doing.
Well, I think they all did multiple things. So I'm assuming the studio. But
Yeah.
that low, I think it's a piano. That guitar on the right here is so cool.
Yeah.
That it's like a twangy thing with a chorusing effect on it. Oh, cool. What year was this? 67, I think it was.
I think so. Yeah. That's right. It's 50 years in 2017.
Oh, sure. My board's over there. I'm not going to bother with it.
So you could see where they were gonna that's a pretty experimental song.
Yeah.
In terms of effects and even just lyrics are just nonsense. Interpret them how you will, but you could see that as an LSD song.
Sure, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Loved it.
Cool.
I hate the fade out, of course, but I'm always going to do that. But this is it's kind of hurting me, honestly, because it just makes me wish that all music was treated like this, all remasters. And, like, there's so many fantastic songs that I love from the 60s and even going back into the 50s. Like I love, some Nat King Cole and Sam Cooke and stuff like that. And like some of it is so lo-fi, even Johnny Cash, right? Yeah. Now, Johnny Cash is different because he was a massive enough star that I think his stuff has been remastered with a lot of care. Like if you go back and listen to the original like recordings of I Walk the Line, right? Sounds completely different than if you looked it up now on Spotify. Yeah. Just like this. I mean, I'm sure this is completely different than the original mono mixes. So like, depending on the size of the artist at the time.
Well, and I wonder also, in 1967, the Beatles are still the biggest band in the world.
Right.
So obviously they have the best
technology
possible, the best tape, the best recording engineers, the most tracks possible. So I'm sure all that stuff has held up better just in terms of source material.
Right.
To work with.
Right. No, you're right.
Even
you're absolutely right. Like having the highest quality tape at the time would have meant that it probably lasted longer and was more well preserved than something like Tommy James and the Shondells or whatever. Yeah. But with modern technology though, and especially now with the advancements of AI, which I really hate, but when you're going to be able to load any song into an AI generator and say make it a modern song, and within 5 years it'll sound phenomenal. So like. But the thing is, what if you have access to the multi-tracks, you can take and do that with each, with the guitar that was on the right, you can take and clean it up to the point where you're cleaning it up so that it's silent. I mean, it's silent.
Yeah.
But it's crisp and clear. Like the cleaning up process is not degrading the quality of the sound too much, which that's the technology that's getting better and better and better. And
that's the AI stuff, is like inserting data where there wasn't any, but
exactly.
You can complete the waveforms that aren't there,
Yep, exactly. And so that's where AI, I think, would be a huge help with this kind of stuff. And it just makes me really wish that all the older stuff that I really like, it was preserved as well as this, and that would be treated with such care now. But like a lot of those bands, people aren't still alive. They don't have the money to go in and do this. Obviously, the mastered tapes are maybe gone. So this is a good opportunity for a question for chat. Is there any like really classic albums that have been remixed in recent years that sound really good? That's not just the Beatles. Because Patrick was sorely disappointed with the Led Zeppelin, and I'm pretty sure we listened to whatever the most recent remaster was. We listened to the Pink Floyd. Did we listen to the 50th anniversary re-release of that? Okay. We did. And that was not as good as this.
Yeah.
It sounded good.
It wasn't bad.
I think they were trying to be way more faithful, because that's kind of what I like about this. It's the kind of fact that they were like, we're going to take this and do it modern, like new. Yeah. And we're going to take every single individual. I'm just assuming what's happening here, but I'm assuming they had the multi-tracks of this, which we've already said, and they went in and they cleaned up and fixed every single sound and point of sound. And that's why it sounds so phenomenal to me. Yeah. And I wish Pink Floyd had sounded like this, because Pink Floyd, the album, like had a lot of we listened to the 50th anniversary of Dark Side, and there were a lot of like dynamic issues on that album. Like there were moments where you could tell with the song they wanted it to get nice and big, but they just literally couldn't. Yeah. And there was a lot of moments like that on that album, and I wish that sounded like this. It would be, I would love that. So yes, that's a great question. Please let us know in the comments. Recommend something from before 1970 or whatever. It doesn't have to be before that, but like something that's been remastered that was treated with really good love and care, like this seems to be. Okay, so that's Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. I've heard that one. Now we're getting into more uncharted territory. That was a 3.5 minute song, and you could tell. You could feel it felt much longer than the two previous songs. Obviously, that first track is kind of like an intro to the album.
Yeah.
By the way, in that first track, when they're like, "Let me introduce to you," the like thing, we had to loop this song a whole bunch so that they could fit in the lyrics and the names of all the different people who work for Warren Buffett.
They did. Let me introduce to you Bob Smith from accounting.
Yeah, like they did a lot of that, and we did bring in a guy who played some trumpet and stuff on it, and he recorded like a whole brass section for the parts that we looped and stuff. So yeah,
You know, this is why we don't need rich people in this world.
I know.
What a waste of effort.
I know. Hey, we got to work on it at the studio, which is great.
Hey, that's cool.
You're absolutely right. If Warren Buffett, if you hear this, you ever listen to this, big fan of the channel, if you could just give me just a $1 million from your enormous billions of dollars, I would be set for my entire life. My children, if I ever decide to have any or can after I go through my bone marrow transplant.
You could pay for half of your medical bills.
I could pay for about half my medical bills. Yes, that's absolutely not a joke at all. But, I just wish, if I could find one billionaire to give me $1 million, which to them is a drop in a bucket.
I know. It's like $2 to me.
I'd be set for life,
Oh, man. We don't hang out with the right people.
We don't. And maybe we're better people for that.
Probably.
Okay, this is Getting Better in 3, 2, 1. Is this the got to admit it's getting better?
Yeah.
Getting better.
Yeah.
Oh,
See, you know them all.
I really don't, but
Used to get mad at my school.
I can't believe how good it sounds.
Taught me when cool.
I'm shook. Okay, I'm gonna start focusing on the songs and not just the sounds now.
Filling me up with your rules. I got to admit,
Bass is still on the right.
it's a little better.
It's not bothering me that much though.
I have to admit, it's getting better. It's getting better.
This would have never been mixed like this at the time. Sorry, I just can't get over it. But
We used to be
it sounds so good. Is all the like bonus stuff mixed this way too, or is it all just like more piggle?
Oh, it's like different takes.
Oh, right. Okay.
it's getting better.
It's weird as they have Strawberry Fields Forever on disc 2, but that's not even on the album.
Right.
That must have just been a single, I guess.
They also have Penny Lane, which is not on this album.
That's weird.
I don't know.
Those might have just been singles.
It's getting better all the time.
Oh my gosh.
Getting better all the time.
I don't even know what that noise is.
Yeah, it started like a piano almost, I thought.
It's like a saw blade.
It is. It's crazy. It's very cool.
Yeah.
Very unconventional for the time and even for now.
And I think that was the Pet Sounds influence, was throw
Yeah.
some sound effects in there and use them.
See, like Pet Sounds was crazy because it was like they wanted a saxophone, they brought in a saxophone for like 5 seconds.
Yeah, right.
You know?
It's
So
the sheer variety.
that was where the effort went. But this is that effort being put into creativity with the one keyboard instrument they had, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Because every song so far has had like a cool little unique sound to that song.
Yep.
Which, as you know, is one of my favorite things in music. I want every song to have its own unique little thing.
Yeah.
I am becoming a Beatles fan as we sit here. But the problem is going to be I can only listen to their stuff that was treated like this.
I know. Nope.
I don't know
It's
if
not
I
a fade
count
out.
that as a fade out.
Nah, that's just a weird ending.
That, by the way, that sound we just heard there, at first I thought that was a piano, but the more I listened to it, I think it was a very weird guitar part.
Oh, interesting.
I think it was a high-pitched guitar part, which
Okay.
I could. Okay, let's talk about the music for a sec. If that was a guitar part and not a piano, which I think it could have been either, it could have been a piano that was, compressed and tape saturated and all this stuff so much to the point where it started to get a little distortion to it. But if that was a guitar part, that was a very unconventional guitar part, just doing the same thing. Like that is a modern way to approach guitar that I do not think would have been happening. And also, when we were listening to that, I was like, I hear so many bands today that do stuff like this. Like the influence on this is everywhere in all indie acoustic rock music that I ever know of. Like every band that I've ever heard where the lead singer wears glasses sounds just like this. Any hipster beatnik band, this is the core of what they're starting with. But the thing that's so cool about this, to me, the music that I like, not all of it, but like when I think of the stuff like Portishead, right? Or Black Keys or The Heavy and stuff like that, it all has this like grittiness to everything that is like put there intentionally, right? Like it is like you hear bits of the room. The distortion is crisp. It's like it's attacking you kind of, and not in a like metal distorted guitar way. Like it has a very particular sound to it, and this has that exact same sound. This sounds just like that stuff. And I don't know if all that stuff is trying to be this, or if this, because when we listened to it with a little help from my friends, the 2009 remaster, like there was such a big difference there, even though it wasn't a huge difference, but I was hearing this just sounds so good. And everything sounds so isolated and perfectly placed, and the mix is so wide, and there's a lot of modern things happening in the mix. Because I'm not familiar with the original mixes, I don't know what we're hearing that is like a modern thing that they're doing, or if they did it that way originally, or even if they were trying to do it and couldn't with the technology they had to do it to the extent that it's being done here, you know? Like, but I really am hearing a lot of modern, like, pretty much anything that's not metal or country is based on this, and like so many interesting
maybe
sounds.
The next comparison we should do is see if we can find a mono version of one of them.
Yes, I think we should try to do that. I don't know if they have it on Spotify, but we'll have to see.
Because that would have been what they were thinking originally at the time, you know.
Yeah. And I just, especially with how wide and nice the mixes sound, it would just sound. I would think that it would be like a jumbled mess. And also, there was a lot more reverb on the 2009 remaster.
That's what I was thinking too, and I don't know if it was just that song or
that's the dryness of everything that we're hearing here is the thing that's the most shocking to me. That's why it sounds modern, because modern music is a lot of stuff is so dry, and even in the 60s. You know, that was not the case. And then in the 70s,
very reverby.
Right. And then the 70s were a little bit more close mic'd, like think of Fleetwood Mac or something, very dry. But then 80s, total opposite, everything drenched and soaked in the fake reverb, you know, that you added after the fact. And so like very different. And that's why to me it sounds so good, is the dryness of everything. Everything just sounds so, like when I say it sounds crisp and quiet and clean, there's no reverb on anything. And that has to be because they went back into the original tracks. And I would think you would have to do it. You wouldn't have to, but to get the same sounds, if they were remixing this, you would have to have the same like reverb unit, and you'd have to have the same board, I would, which is like the Beatles.
Said, money has no object. They can find a 1967 piece of equipment if they needed to, just for 5 seconds.
And where was this recorded? Do we know?
I don't know. I don't know if this is when they moved to Abbey Road. They started recording everything at Abbey Road. Right,
which I'm sure everything that the Beatles recorded was, like all their equipment and stuff is probably preserved and saved over the years just because of what it was. But,
Well, maybe. I think because Abbey Road recorded a lot of artists.
Famous bands.
Famous bands too. So
yeah,
I don't know. I assume,
but also if they would go to their John's house and record stuff on their own too, then who knows what that But the thing though would be oh God, that's so interesting and different though, because at the time originally you didn't have millions of tracks, so you would have to, if you wanted reverb on stuff, you would probably have to burn the reverb onto the track.
Yeah, I don't know how many tracks they were working with.
Unless they at the time they were so huge that they would have recorded everything dry and then made copies of all that stuff onto other tape to then mix the album from that and save all the dry original source material.
Someone in the comments tell us.
Yeah, let me know, because I'm shocked. I'm shocked at how great this sounds.
If we end up doing more Beatles stuff, I would like to do, eventually we should do Let It Be, which is their final album. Really their second to last they recorded. And because three or four of the songs in there were literally just recorded on the rooftop live.
Interesting.
And I didn't know that until years later, years after I had heard it. It's like, oh, 4 of these songs are just like live tracks that they ran wires from the rooftop down to the recording, and they recorded them on multi-track down there on the equipment in Abbey Road, but it was out in the wind, you know.
Wow.
And it's kind of crazy. And so
that is crazy.
If we ever get to that point, I would like to maybe even have you watch the Get Back documentary and do like a little discussion about that. That would be way down the road, though. I think we would probably do some of their other remixed albums first.
Sure, that's fascinating. This is fascinating. I love this.
Cool.
If I could just go to Walmart and buy this CD, I would go do that. But I'm sure all this deluxe crap is like super expensive.
Yeah.
Maybe not though. The Beatles are super popular. This stuff has been listened to millions of times. So.
Well, you could probably get it on vinyl.
Not this remastered version.
No,
I mean, I guess I could, but yeah, you're right. You're right.
But
anyway,
I won't get you ranting about vinyl.
All right, Fixing a Hole.
Yep.
In 3, 2, 1.
Now this is some Baroque pop.
Yeah. Okay.
My favorite, as you know.
Yep. I know. A lot of Blur in this. Now that I'm connecting the modern, like the
the modern Beatles.
Yeah.
I'm filling the cracks that ran through the door and kept my mind from wandering where it will go.
Wow. They hit that note so perfectly, their voices melded into one. Unless that was Paul dubbing himself, but... Wow, massive! Holy crap! Oh, I wish Chris was here for this. This would blow his mind.
This one feels almost spread too wide to me. Like, I don't know if I like the harpsichord in my left ear only.
Interesting. Okay. See, I think it is mixed nicely.
Okay.
Because there's stereo drums too, which is helping it.
Yeah.
Like the hi-hat is kind of on the left, and there's something on the right. I don't know if that's snare.
God, it's been so long.
Listen to this solo.
I know. I don't even remember the solo.
Did they put that? They're recording that like in a can or something. It sounded like a tin can.
Yeah.
Oh my God, the cleanliness of those oohs sounds so good. The thing that's going to piss me off is everybody loved the Beatles before it sounded like this. You know what I mean? Like, and they had not even heard this, which has to be considered the definitive best, greatest, most wonderful version of any of this.
Sure.
Oh.
But all the nice things you've said about the songwriting and the
that's true. Everyone did definitely.
That still applied.
Appreciated that, yeah. Now, whether you could hear all those awesome things, I don't know. Another fade out. It's the second fade out.
Yeah.
The length of the songs is a bummer to me, and I expected them to be short, but like,
As
it
was the style of
sounds
the time.
so good. Like, I wish that there was more to them.
Their later albums, they started lengthening them.
Well, and I wanted to say too, like, I was recently watching a video where Rick Beato, which is someone that's a famous guy. Do you know who Rick Beato is?
No.
He's just like I don't know how he got started or what he's doing, but he's famous on YouTube now, but he's way more famous that he's like an important person in the music industry. And what he does on his YouTube channel is one of the things he does is he listens to the top, like every so often he listens to the top like 10 songs on Spotify or whatever, like the top 10 songs in the world. And he talks about like, talks about them. And generally he's pretty disappointed with them, but it's hard to explain him, but like he's a very well respected guy in the music industry.
Yeah.
And he has very famous interviews with very famous musicians, guitar players, keyboard players, drummers, for all these people from old bands. I'm sure he's talked to Paul McCartney like multiple times. But he was talking recently about how nowadays when you listen to a song, and we bring this stuff up, and I brought these exact conversations up in certain videos, but I don't know if you were in them or not, but talking about the structure of songs and how the Beatles, it was like at the time, that's how all the artists were, but like it was almost a miracle that they could fit all of these things into a song that was only 2.5 minutes long. That was so short. But yet when you're done with that song, you feel satisfied that it's over. Like you don't feel like you're missing half a song. And he was talking about how with modern music, the trend over the last decade has been for the length of songs to be going down. And that's something
Really?
Chris and I have been talking about. Yeah, I think TikTok really, TikTok really impacted that. I think that it really, the minute-long videos, artists were starting to write songs that with really cool parts that could fit within a minute. You know, they might still be writing songs twice that length, but
you get the gist of the whole song in
exactly in just that minute.
That's going to be the background of a video.
Exactly. And so what Chris and I have been complaining about now for the last few years is that albums are getting shorter and shorter. It's not uncommon to have a 27-minute long 12-track album now, which is like ridiculous. Yeah. And so, which it's a little contrasting because we can still, we did just listen to that 71-minute Dream Theater album last week, so it's not everywhere, but like it's a trend we're definitely noticing. And he was talking about how back in the day, the Beatles were doing that. They were doing full-length songs with a verse, chorus, bridge, chorus in a 2.5 minutes, and you felt completed and satisfied when the song was over. And that the modern songwriting doesn't do that because they still do the same length verse, same length chorus, and they just basically do my least favorite song structure of all time, which is verse, chorus, done. Yeah. I hate that. I hate songs like that. A
2.5 minute song would feel so out of place on the albums that you've like made me listen to recently. If they were doing the songs like they were doing,
you could only do that if it was some sort of an intro to a song,
like some sort of gimmick to it. But
yeah, exactly, yeah, and so it's really interesting how they're able to leave you satisfied on a song to song basis. Mm-hmm. And I also just have to say, because I've made fun of it my whole life whenever we talk about music, that stupid bird song where Paul is tapping his foot. Blackbird singing in the dead of night, whatever that one is.
Yeah.
I have used that as an example of like the worst thing in the world because the only version of that song I've ever heard, and I remember hearing it when I was in college, and I remember the person who showed it to me, and I remember being mind boggled. But at the time, and again, now that we're having this conversation, I don't know if they would have fixed it nowadays, but like the version of that song I heard was like Paul McCartney singing in the middle, guitar on the left, and his foot tapping far right. And I'm like, this is the most awful thing I've ever heard, like ever. And I don't think I heard a note of the song. I was just like, what the hell is that on the side? And the person's like, that's his foot tapping. Isn't that cool? I'm like, no, please make it mono. That's so terrible sounding. And so I just have to mention that while I'm thinking about it, because that's like one Beatles thing that I've thought my whole life. When I think of the Beatles, I think of Paul's stupid foot tapping on the far right side.
We'll get to the White Album someday.
But now I'm thinking of this, which is fantastic and way better.
And I love Blackbird because I love the melody.
Oh, sure. And I'm sure I would like it now, too. You got it. And even if they're trying something interesting and different, I talk all the time, too, about how my love for Nancy Sinatra. She's another artist from this time period that I really think her music was special, even though at the time they were trying so hard to like she was such a manufactured person. Everything about her was so ridiculous, but the decisions that the team around her made, even for the specific songs that she did, was so cool. And then they would ruin it by putting her voice and the drums on the left and the bass and an orchestra and stuff on the right. And it's so terrible.
See, that's one that needs a remix.
I was just going to say that would be a perfect example, but people do not care about her music at all. We'll never get that. Never. Yeah. You cannot buy any of her music nowadays. All right. I'm sorry, everybody. We're talking about so much stuff. I'm just genuinely so excited.
No, it's better to talk about them between the tracks, I think, than
right. And
than over the 2.5 minute song.
For sure. I'm like so excited. I don't know what we're going to get from song to song. There's a 5-minute long song coming up. So it's like,
You probably don't know these two, if I had to guess.
I didn't know that one at all.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
All right. She's Leaving Home. This has 10 million plays, quite a bit more than the song after it or the song before it, really.
I don't like this one.
Interesting. Okay.
Sorry.
It's a 3.5. So
All right.
in 3, 2, 1. Harp. We love our harp here on this channel.
Wednesday morning at 5.
I definitely like Paul McCartney's voice way better than John's.
Yeah, I do
From
too.
what I've heard.
And I think that's why I like Paul's solo stuff more.
Cello?
than John's.
Silently closing
Okay,
her
string quartet.
bedroom, leaving
Very cool,
the
very
note
dry.
that she
Must be
hoped would
the
say
George Martin
more.
Orchestra.
She goes
There you go.
downstairs to the kitchen, clutching her handkerchief. Quietly turning the back door key, stepping
Is
outside.
the harp almost
she
sounds like a
is
ukulele at a
free.
certain point.
Because they're strumming it. Yeah.
Yeah.
We gave her most of our lives. Is leaving, sacrifice.
That sounds just like the Eels.
The what?
The Eels, the band Eels. Like, I'm hearing so many things in this.
Home after living alone for so many years.
This is the same melody in that every song that you live in. What is that? Live and let die.
Oh, yeah.
Why? It's the same note.
You know, he's allowed to. Rip
No,
off his
they're
own
ripping
stuff.
off them terrible one-hit wonder. They don't know what to do anymore.
Up the letter that's lying
You don't like this as
Uh,
much? As much?
I just, it's not very fun to sing to.
of the stairs. She
That sounds pretty fun.
and cries to her husband.
That was weird. They were overlapping the vocal parts there. I cannot believe what we're listening to. It's like blowing my
I'm so
mind.
happy that you
I
we
can't- I
found
just-
something.
I can't believe it, Cody.
Maybe you'll get half good comments.
I can't believe this. That's got to be John then, right?
Yeah.
But again, if it wasn't mixed like this, I don't think I would like it as much at all. Like, it is the mix.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the great songwriting and everything, too. I'm loving it. I love the variety from song to song. Like, every song is completely different. It's shocking.
Isn't it crazy that for years the definitive version was the mono version?
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, you haven't heard it, I guess, but
right, but it couldn't be this wide. Well, it couldn't be this wide.
Obviously, but
How could it feel nice and lush like this? How could you get everything out of all of, like,
I don't know.
these notes here, this part? That just reminds me of something so... I don't know if it's the Eels or not, now that I'm thinking about it. I mean, there's definitely Beatles in this. I'm sorry, not Beatles. Yes, this is Beatles. There's definitely Blur and Damon Albarn stuff.
Yeah.
There's... I mean, the strings sound so good. They're so clear. It sounds like they were recorded today.
Hey, nice ending too.
Which, you know what? They probably hired a string section to... Oh, hold on. I forgot to stop it.
Oh.
Wow, that was a... I think I just heard
learned
a
about
bass
Mr. Kite.
harmonica in there. I did, I think.
Yeah, I think they did a lot of, like, the producers would come in and do, like, session stuff afterwards to fill in
Interesting. Okay.
stuff like that. I know for a fact that Phil Spector did that on Let It Be, that he
Sure.
just came in with an orchestra later and just recorded stuff on his own.
Because, like, on that song, unless any of the Beatles played a stringed instrument, like, none of them were performing the music on that.
I've never heard of one of them playing a harp. I've never seen a picture of
A harp
you know.
or cello or violin or another
Yeah.
cello, I think. So, like,
Yeah, that was
and the
probably
bass too. There was
session
some
people.
nice low music in there. Low, really nice, clear low frequencies.
The great thing about the Beatles is because they're by far the most well-documented band of all time.
Right.
And
right.
so every single song they've ever recorded has a Wikipedia page for it that's probably a mile long.
Sure.
And you can find out anything you wanted to know about any of these songs.
That's really cool.
There's a really
that is
cool YouTube channel out there that I like that is he only uploads like once every 6 months. It's called, and I sent you a link, but I'm sure you didn't listen to it. It's called You Can't Unhear This.
Okay.
And he breaks down. They must have released like 5.1 mixes of all this stuff in the past or something, because he would take a Beatles song and it would be like, today we're going to answer the question of who sings this part in this song, and then he would break it down and be like, and every video is like that. It's like a really specific part of a Beatles song.
Okay.
And he goes to the whatever mixes he can get his hands on and like breaks down how it was recorded, and he gets into the history of it. It's like, this is what John said before he died about how this was recorded, and this is what Paul has said since then.
Wow.
And it's like, no other band could you do that to, and no other band would anyone care to listen to that stuff.
Right, exactly. That is really interesting, and that's what we're talking about earlier. Of like, it's hard to contemplate the size of this band and like the legacy that they have left. And the thing that I can't wrap my head around is like, this sounds so fantastic to me, but until this came out, it didn't sound like this.
I know.
So were people just extrapolating this from what it sounded like before? You know what I mean? Were they just like, this is what they were going for? Because like, you can't tell me in the 60s, anyone was sitting there listening to that thinking, wow, what a perfect lush chamber sound. You know what I mean? And it couldn't have been.
And this is one of the albums that I think this was just before their trend. Like the White Album was recorded in stereo from the get-go. I mean, they were all recorded in stereo, but the White Album was mixed for stereo, like primarily. This one, I think, was still mixed for mono primarily. And apparently the Beatles, would say, you got to listen to it in mono. That's the way you listen to it.
Sure.
That was prior to this remix or whatever. So it makes me wonder, like, it makes me think that we if we ended up doing more Beatles stuff, you could do a whole video on mono versus stereo for those, like, that section of like 4 albums where it's everyone says the mono is the one to get.
Interesting.
And you could even do mono versus stereo versus the remixes, because it's almost like they fixed the stereo version that was crappy to begin with.
Yeah, well, there's no way it could sound better than this.
But I would be curious.
Way.
I would be curious for you to, if there would be any of them where you would hear the stereo and the mono that were as they were originally released and say that the mono is better.
I would be curious about that. I don't
because
think
it would be surprising, but
yeah.
But if the stereo was done so badly that
yeah.
So I don't know.
A really interesting thought for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, this is Being for the Benefit of Mr. Kite.
I always thought it was just for the benefit of Mr. Kite, but I don't know. This is another one. This series of 2 songs I'm not big fans of.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so this is Being for the Benefit of Mr. Kite! Exclamation point. Not a lot of exclamation point in song titles over the years. Although, much more of a common thing back in the 45 days.
I thought I had my Help shirt on. Help has an exclamation point.
I need somebody, help, not just anybody.
That's more your era of being...
Help! I don't know. If you told me that was in 1985, I'd believe you. I have no clue. All right, Being for the Benefit of Mr. Kite. In 3, 2, 1.
Good.
For the benefit of Mr. Kite,
Hey, it didn't even say Being.
What does this remind me of?
The Hendersons will all be there later.
Spoon, maybe, the band?
What a scene. Over men and horses, hoops and garters, lastly through a hogshead of real fire.
The Fratellis?
Mr. K will challenge the world.
I'll read the lyrics on this.
So there's an accordion in there, and it does sound like a baritone harmonica, or a bass harmonica.
Yeah.
Love the huge sounding hi-hat.
These lyrics are so nonsense. I could never remember and be able to sing with this.
I don't think I've heard a single word they've said in any song.
It's just nonsense.
Yeah.
It sounds like they're putting on a circus show for Mr. Kite.
It definitely is very circusy.
Yeah.
Wow. What is that? That it has to be a keyboard of some kind. Wow.
Let's see if I can figure it out.
It was around 1:30
Most of the lyrics came from a 19th century circus poster.
Awesome. Very cool.
That is cool. I actually, yeah.
His voice here is reminding me of a band that I am familiar with, and I cannot think of what it is. This is awesome.
Yeah.
What are those reverse things? That's like glass breaking reversed. It is. It's some kind of reverse.
There is a calliope organ.
A calliope. A calliope? Or
Calliope, yeah.
Calliope.
I don't think that's what you're talking about.
No, the calliope is the ooh, ooh, ooh.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like an air organ with pump. This is blowing my mind. What is that? It sounded like a harp. It could have been a harp played really high and reversed. Oh my gosh. Hold on, I'm gonna rewind that. That was...
And I regret saying I don't like that song, because that was actually really good. I did pull up the wiki page.
I can't believe... If this... Okay, we gotta listen to this if we find the mono ones.
There was they played a Hammond organ and sped it up at one point, it says.
Oh, that could be what that is. That well, you can hear some stuff speeding up and slowing down. That they're like this type stuff.
Okay.
But I don't know what that. It was something that was reversed, and it was like a glass. It sounded like glass, like a glockenspiel or something like that reversed. But it didn't sound harsh like that.
Yeah.
I am shocked. This, if we find the mono versions of this, I want to listen to that.
Okay,
because
yeah.
I don't know that wouldn't. Obviously, it was swooshing, right?
Yeah.
You can't have things swoosh in mono.
There was a Mellotron, a Wurlitzer, a different organ, a Glockenspiel.
Okay, so maybe that was the part, and they just played it up higher and then reversed it.
Yeah. By the way, George Martin is the one playing piano, harmonium, organ, Mellotron. He plays all the weird instruments, I guess. So I guess he just added them in later.
That's very cool. Awesome. Yeah. That was the most impressive thing we've heard sonically. Like, that was mind-boggling.
Yeah, that felt more experimental than whatever
Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. Yeah.
And I regret saying that I didn't like that. It just didn't stick in my mind for whatever reason, but that's really cool. And I love actually that the lyrics were taken from a poster.
Yeah, that is really cool. I'm going to go back real quick and just listen to the vocals in the beginning.
Okay.
That kick drum is massive too. What? Somebody tell me in the comments when it's just right there in my... There is a guy who sings like that in a band. It could be the Fratellis, the guy from the Fratellis. Hold on.
The Hendersons will all be there. Later, Pablo Bank is there. What a scene. Over men and horses, hoops and
incredible. I can't believe that. This is the greatest achievement in all of music. I mean, and what I mean by that is this remix.
Yeah.
This is like the greatest thing I've ever heard. I can't believe this.
They are using existing material.
I know, but
I mean, the choice to record all those different instruments and put them where they were, that was
right.
all made originally.
Right. I'm assuming they added nothing to this, and this is all there. But if that's the case, how do you have such a
what
vision?
Is the mono version?
Yeah, how do you have such a vision for this with one damn track, with nothing spread? I mean, it's shocking to me because the way that the stuff was flying around from left to right and moving, and the I don't even know if they kept. When did the technology exist to reverse sound?
they could
You
reverse.
play the tape backwards, right? You just But I don't understand how they did that. That's shocking to me.
Oh, hold on. Okay, further down, we're listening to the Super Deluxe version, right?
Yes.
I think disc 4 is the mono version.
Ooh.
So why don't we listen to Benefit of Mr. Kite?
Okay, disc 4. Hold on. For the benefit of Mr. Kite. Okay, in 3, 2, 1.
Well, it's not nearly as intense at the start.
Benefit of Mr. Kite, there will be a show tonight on trampoline. The citizens will all be there. Late of Pablo Frank is there. What a scene. Over men and horses, hoops and guns.
Lot of slapback echo
of real fire.
on the vocal.
In this way, Mr. K will challenge the world.
And I think this may be remastered, but obviously it's
Yeah,
just, I don't think they remade the mono.
The vocal is like by far the loudest thing you're hearing here, and that
Yeah.
is not how the stereo mix is.
No.
This sounds really good though.
Yeah.
Like that kick is still massive. I like the bass being in the middle.
Production will be second to none. And of course, Henry the Horse dances the waltz.
I can understand what he's saying a lot easier here. Okay. See that there now, I can tell that's a guitar. I don't even know if that part was in the other song.
The band begins at 10 to 6 when Mr. K performs his tricks without a sound. And Mr. H will demonstrate 10 somersets he'll undertake on solid ground.
Gosh, I want to go to YouTube and look up a vinyl rip of the original vinyl and just see what what it sounds like.
Right, yeah.
Because this does sound really good. Like this really showcases the bass. I mean, the bass guitar, the kick, and the bass guitar, the kick, snare, and the vocals. Okay, so it has all the reverse stuff in there.
Yep.
Wow, everything is emphasized completely differently.
Yeah.
Because it's not like you are only hearing what they're showing you for the most part. Whereas in the stereo mix, you can choose what you're listening to. You can pick everything out of the mix.
Yep.
Wow, that is shocking.
So not bad, I guess.
Let me go back. No, let me go back one more time. I'm going to go back one more time. It's like 10 dB louder. I'm going to go to the 1 minute 30 when that guitar part. I think it was a guitar, a really slappy guitar. At like 115. No. It's gotta be a guitar. Gosh, the mere fact that I'm here questioning what any of this stuff is from 1967.
Right.
Mind-blowing. Okay, now we got a 5-minute song, so strap in. This is this is the epic.
Oh, I think this is a George Harrison.
Okay.
I think this is a Came Back from India song.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So I don't know if you'll like it.
All right, in 3, 2, 1.
Oh, yeah. This was a big song, though.
Again, how different would that sound in mono? Djembe? I am not a big fan of sort of like this kind of percussive stuff, but
yeah.
I mean, this sounds. You couldn't record this better today. This could not sound any better than it sounds.
This started side 2, by the way, if you're wondering.
Oh, interesting. Okay, that's good to know. So that last track, interesting final track.
Yeah.
Because generally on vinyl, you try to have the final track be the ballad on each side because the needle is spinning faster because the circles are smaller.
I've started to notice that recently.
Was that a voice or was that a
I think that was just
cello
a violin or something. Or a cello, yeah.
So is this, who's singing this? Paul
I think
or
this is
John?
George.
George?
George Harrison, yeah. I believe.
How cool that like all four of are like,
Yeah.
I mean, do they have songs that Ringo sang?
Yeah. He only wrote one of their songs. He did Octopus's Garden.
Okay. Well, how cool though that all of them are represented and they're all just as incredible.
Oh. This might be a George Harrison solo. The rest of them are not on the credits.
Interesting. I mean, this is a whole dang orchestra here.
Yeah. There's a lot of instruments that I don't know the names of listed.
Yeah, I mean, it's all very
Indian traditional.
I mean, and as someone who just completed Assassin's Creed Mirage recently, this is like right in there.
Yeah.
Definitely not as big a fan of this though. I mean, it sounds ungodly phenomenal, but.
And I'm sure if you had never heard Indian music, this maybe would blow your mind to be in the middle of an album like this.
Absolutely. And I'm sure it was the first exposure to this music maybe for a lot of people.
Sure.
Maybe not, but.
Yeah, for a lot, I'm sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Egyptian movies and stuff were really huge in like the 30s and the 40s and stuff, or even in the 20s.
Yeah.
So that, and you know, they didn't exactly care about accuracy at the time. So
right, yeah.
There might have been stuff like this, you know. So the Beatles, they toured the world then, I'm assuming, right? Like they...
Early in their career, they did a lot of touring.
Okay.
But before this album, or after this album came out, I don't think they played another concert until their rooftop final concert.
Interesting.
Yeah, they were.
So they made several albums without ever performing them?
Yep.
I love that.
And
you couldn't tell me anything about a band more than I would like them for that and that.
And this album was kind of the turning point there, which is... I don't mind too much. I don't mind talking over this one that much.
Me either at all,
But that's one of the fascinating things about the Get Back documentary is because it's all about them setting up to do this concert. And they wanted to go to, I think, like the Sahara Desert or something like that and do it in the middle of the desert.
Where no one could attend it.
Yeah, or like a small group or something. And they were thinking of all these... Throughout the whole documentary, while they're writing the album, they're talking about where are we going to do the concert? What are we going to do?
Yeah.
And eventually they just said, screw it, let's just go up to the roof and do it, like today or tomorrow or something.
Really?
Yeah.
And where did it take place then? Just at
Abbey Road Studios.
On the roof.
And then, and the police shut them down after like 5 songs or something.
Wow. What a lost opportunity. They had to have known that was going to happen, though.
Yeah, I think so.
And that was their last show?
Yeah, and that was the only show they had played in like 5 years.
Wow. That is so weird. I like that.
This is why people like watching stuff about the Beatles. It's very cool. There's drama between the members. It's fascinating.
Yeah, wow. Oh, cool. Everybody kind of chuckling there. So I wonder how they got that recorded. That laughing. I'm guessing they recorded that orchestral part there, and those were the laughing of those the musicians, maybe? Mm-hmm. Like if someone said a joke or something, and then you hear it had them kind of chuckling. Unless they just threw that in as like sound effects that they recorded specifically for that.
Right, yeah.
You know, I mean, but they could have had...
The Wikipedia gets into like... It says there was 2 overdubbing sessions on 22nd of March. 2 more Dillaruba parts were added that day, after which a reduction mix was carried out to allow further overdubs on the 4-track recording. They have a zither and a swarmandal played by Harrison.
Wow.
There's a lot of words I don't understand in here, but then it talks about the final mixes. Oh, Harrison added crowd laughter taken from a sound effects tape at the Abbey Road Library.
Gotcha. Okay.
So
I mean, it did sound very...
It sounded canned, right?
Yeah. Very cool, though.
Yeah.
Very interesting. My least favorite song on the album by far, but...
Yeah, me too. I was never really into George Harrison's like India-inspired stuff.
Yeah, I'm kind of bummed to know that like we could have just had like a 5-minute masterpiece instead it was that, like a soundtrack to a movie that I probably wouldn't have enjoyed as much. But
oh well, just wait till you hear Revolution number 9 on.
When I'm 64, I know that one.
Yeah, there you go. Every time I think of this song, I remember the day Paul McCartney turned 64, and I was watching like Good Morning America, and they were playing this, and they're like, Paul McCartney's 64. Look, it's just like the song.
I think I remember that too.
That was like 2003. I
think I can remember that too, Cody.
I always think of that whenever.
That is so weird.
Now Paul's like 84.
Don't say that. All right, when I'm 64.
Yep.
In 3, 2, 1.
This reminds me of Maxwell
Oboe,
Silverhammer.
bassoon.
Yeah.
Oh, and the brushed drums.
Losing my hair many years from now. Will you still be sending me a Valentine? Birthday greetings, bottle of wine. If I'd been out till 2:45, would you lock the door? Will you still need me? Will you still feed me when I'm 64?
Back then, 64 was considered very old.
Interesting.
I guess, right? Life expectancy was probably like 65.
Yeah. Bass in the middle.
I could be handy mending a fuse when your lights have gone. You can knit a sweater by the fireside. Sunday mornings go for a ride. Doing the garden, digging the weeds.
I can't believe this sounds so good.
Will you still need me? Will you still feed me when I'm 64? Every summer we can rent a cottage in
Paul
the
wrote this melody when he was
Isle of
14.
Wight. If it's not too dear, we shall scream and say, grandchildren on your knee. Vera
Church bells, all of a sudden.
and Dave. Send me a
Oh my
postcard,
gosh.
drop me a line stating point of view. Indicate precisely what you mean to say. You're sincerely wasting away. Give me your answer, fill in a form, mine forevermore. Or will you still need me? Will you still feed me when I'm 64? Woo.
I'm going to go back real quick. Hold on, not to that one. He did a thing when he was singing.
Send me a postcard, drop me a line stating point of view. Indicate precisely what you mean to say. You're sincerely wasting away. Give me your answer,
Hold on.
fill in a form, mine forevermore.
Right there, mine forevermore. And then he went, like you. There's no way that is in the original version.
You want to?
There's no way. So that's like 220.
Okay.
There's no way that's in there. Oh, my thing just beeped. Hold on, I'll change that in a second. This is too important. The Beatles are too important. Okay, what did I say? 220?
220.
Will you still need me?
I can't believe this.
Dave, precisely what you mean to say. You're sincerely wasting away. Give me your answer, fill in a form, mine forevermore. Or will you
It is
still
in there.
need me?
Oh, you did hear it?
Yeah, I did. It's just,
It's not as obvious.
well, nothing's as obvious in that.
Yeah.
I can't believe how great. I mean, this is literally one of the greatest things I've ever heard. Like, I swear to God, this is one of the like clearest, most amazing things I've ever heard. Like,
so now you know that Patrick is not. He's not just going to crap on something because it's popular.
If you told me this was recorded today, I'd be like, this is a triumph of today. Like,
Nice.
It sounds so good. I am shocked. I can't believe it. I can't believe this. And it pisses me off because everybody that I know loves the Beatles, and it just is like,
They haven't listened to this version.
no, they like, I probably, and they probably stick their nose up at this, or hold on, before we go to the next one, I have to change my medication real quick. So just give me like 5 minutes.
I heard that earlier. I thought it was like a smoke alarm or something.
Oh no, how long ago?
It was just you. Like it was like 10 minutes. I think it was after the last song.
Oh,
I'm gonna go to the bathroom.
Okay, yeah, yep. When I'm 64. All right, sorry. Lovely Rita, I believe, is what we're on now.
Yep.
In 3, 2, 1. So that guitar was recorded in stereo, it sounds like. Piano and mono. All the piano sounds like it's been mono. The drums sound phenomenal here. Listen to the ring on that snare. Whoa!
I don't know what that was. I've never heard that.
Is this the first time you've heard this album like this?
Yeah, I've never
Awesome.
heard the remaster.
Can you look which of their albums was given this treatment?
Sure.
Kazoo. That was a kazoo, I think.
Yeah.
Meter Maid. Lovely Rita Meter Maid. I've heard that referenced in stuff. Rita the Meter Maid.
Yeah.
Or is that a common like slang, British slang thing maybe?
No. In fact, the Wikipedia says that in the UK, the term meter maid was largely unknown before this song.
Really?
They must have learned it in America.
Rita Meter Maid, though. I've heard that. I think that's even a character in Twisted Metal or something. Rita Meter Maid.
Yeah,
Something like that. Listen to this piano solo, baby. Everything's so spanky, but it sounds so nice.
Yeah.
This is like the first couple songs on the album.
Remind me there's some interesting stuff to talk about after this song, too.
I like the little scat part here.
Yeah.
This one's gonna fade out at 1,000,000%. What is that? Maybe not fade out. What a weird.
believe it.
That was really weird at the end there. That was.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna go back to that last like 10 seconds. What a modern thing, you know?
Yeah.
Like that's such a modern, like just letting the song kind of meander while there's like weird scatty vocals over the top, and then some weird like clicky thing over the top of it too. Wow, that's shocking. Really cool.
So this said, you said something about a double stereo guitar.
Yes, at the beginning.
This says George Harrison's guitar was on track 1, Lennon's guitar was on track 2, drums on track 3, and then McCartney's piano was on track 4, and then McCartney overdubbed a bass guitar part later. And then they added vocals later, I guess. He said he wanted the backing vocals to replicate how the Beach Boys might have approached the song. Mm-hmm. is what McCartney wanted. So, but it's interesting. They said apparently Pink Floyd was like next door in the studio while they were mixing, and Nick Mason said they were watching the band mix Lovely Rita, but they were such godlike figures to them that they didn't interact with them.
Wow,
So
that's
that was
crazy.
at the point when Pink Floyd was still. This was pre Dark Side of the Moon too, so
Right.
I guess that makes kind of sense, but it's just interesting. It's like I said, every Wikipedia page has like 7 paragraphs on the recording of every one of these songs.
Wow, that's crazy. I mean, there was a lot of stuff in that song other than what you just said. But
Yeah.
if you go back to the very beginning of that song, like
There was it says something about a comb and
so right when that song first starts,
comb and paper, handmade kazoos.
okay, so if that was just recorded in mono, the guitar that's there,
You think?
if it was, then they have some kind of intentional stereo effect on it.
I see what you mean. Yeah,
Like
it does
there
sound
is
like
part of
one
it on the
guitar
right
playing.
side. Yeah.
And it's not just like two different
Because you
guitars
can
playing
you
the
can
same
tell when it's 2 guitars, and it's not perfectly timed. That would be impossible. Every other time that happens, you can hear the guitar on the left and the guitar on the right.
part. Yeah, I see what you mean.
So that's like an interesting way that they did that. Which I can. There are definitely ways to do what they did. You take the track, multiply it, lower it in volume, put a delay on it that's within the fusion zone, EQ it differently, probably take out some of the highs. Like you can do that. You couldn't have in 1967 for
Right,
sure,
yeah.
and you wouldn't do that obviously on a mono recording. So like,
So
really interesting.
This is Giles Martin, son of George Martin. He's the one doing the remixes. It looks like their last 5 albums. So Revolver, this one, the White Album, Abbey Road, and Let It Be.
Interesting.
So
Okay.
which are the 5 I would probably choose to listen to because it's their last 5.
Right.
released.
I mean,
their studio work. And,
are there plans for him to do any more? Does it do? Is it even
not sure.
possible?
Well, because the ones before that I think maybe were only in mono.
Right. So but the thing is, like
They
almost
still
every.
have those.
When I was going to say almost everything we're hearing was recorded in mono,
Sure. Yeah.
you know, and they're just mixing it nicely, you know,
Yeah.
adding effects and stuff to make some stuff. But most of the stuff we're hearing is still mono. It's just
Yeah.
pan to the left, balanced with something else, pan to the right.
Just a
So like
stereo mix.
the mere fact that they even recorded enough things to have the mix feel balanced is mind-boggling. You know what I mean? Because not everything balances other things on the other side of the stereo. Like not everything that's on the left. It doesn't make any sense unless they recorded new things for this to intentionally balance it, that at the time they recorded enough things to have everything feel so nice and balanced. It just doesn't make
I
any
see what you
sense
mean.
because they wouldn't have done that. Like
Right.
you know, I understand, like with that song we were just listening. There's guitar happening. There's drums are in the middle, which is fine. The bass
There's
is in the
one track
middle.
for each. They recorded one track for each person playing at the same time, and then they did some overdubs later.
Right,
Right?
but because it was only in their minds at the time, I assume, going to be in mono. Unless this is different because they were anticipating this being in stereo.
I mean, this one they had stereo plans, but this is
Okay.
the one. This is like the last album where they say you should still listen to this one in mono. It's
Okay,
better.
but even still, though, like the fact that they were thinking about it in stereo,
Yeah.
because that tells me then their albums before this, like they wouldn't have recorded 2 tracks of guitar with the idea that they're going to balance each other. You know what I mean?
Because why would you need to?
Right, you couldn't in mono. You wouldn't need to do that in mono. So
It would
like
just be a waste of tape.
right. So
essentially.
I would imagine if they did something, and maybe that's why their original albums sound so crappy in stereo. Then, if that's what you were talking
Yeah.
about before,
Yeah,
because
I think
they
so.
weren't recorded with any sort of balancing in mind in terms of the stereo mix. So those have to sound like the stupid Nancy Sinatra album, which they weren't recorded with any balance in mind. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And so that's why it just does just sound better in mono because everything's just right there.
Yeah.
And it's not off-putting to have one element all the way to the left, one element all the way to the right, and then one element kind of panned 45 degrees to the right and one element panned 45 degrees to the left. Like, that's very off-putting to listen to anything mixed that way. You know, and I don't think there's ever been a time period where you would have done that on purpose.
No, it would be fun, like I said earlier, to do a mono versus stereo thing. Although I would need like one of the Chris's to go through and cherry pick stuff as like examples from each album, because I'm not the best person to do that.
Right.
And I wouldn't want you to like, spoil your impressions of them. But
Yeah, really interesting. Okay, good morning, good morning. Now, is this good morning, or is that a song
kind
from
of. It's good morning, good morning.
I think
Nope.
I'm thinking of a song from like a musical or something.
Okay.
Good morning.
Oh, good morning, good morning.
Yeah, I'm thinking of like
Yeah.
the girl from whatever, some musical movie or whatever. Okay, 2:45. It's about the same length as the song we just heard, but half
At least
as many
popular
plays.
song on here.
Oh no, the one after. Oh no, oh it is. You're right. Sorry, I was looking at the previous one. So 2:34.
Yep.
In 3, 2, 1. Pet sounds.
Yep.
Whoa!
Nothing to do to save his life, call his wife in. Nothing to
Wow.
say but what a day, how's your boy been? Nothing to do, it's up to you. I've got nothing
Wow,
to
talk
say,
about crisp
but
for
it's
days.
okay.
Crispy.
Going to work, don't wanna go, feeling low down. Heading for home, you start to roam, then you're in town. Everybody knows there's nothing doing, everything is closed, it's like a ruin. Everyone you see is half asleep, and you're on your own, you're in the street. After a while, you start to smile.
Do the Beatles sing that song? You got to admit it's getting better all the time.
Wait, we listened to that earlier.
No, did we?
Getting better? Yeah.
Nothing has changed,
Oh,
it's still
okay.
the
All right, wow.
That's why it's in your head.
No. Well, part of this song reminded me of that. So
Oh, yeah.
okay, sorry.
Boy, it's been... Like I said, I don't own this album. I don't listen to it very often, but this song, I barely know.
Well, the brass is really weird. This is a weird song, very intense. I mean, this is very Blur. That enormous hit there. How did they even record that back in the day? Hopefully this inspires Pink Floyd to be like, well, if the Beatles can do it, we can do it too. Because if the original recordings for Pink Floyd stuff could be done this way, it would sound so much better. This is so nice and dynamic and like clear. That kick drum is massive. I mean, that's like metal.
Yeah.
And all the sounds in there, that has to be Pet Sounds reference, right?
It says on Wikipedia, yeah, it was directly inspired by Pet Sounds.
And they're actually using Pet Sounds, unlike the Beach Boys, who threw like one dog bark and a rooster crow at the end of their album. So that was a fade out.
Yeah.
The way that song started shook me. Because I was like, what is this?
It was intense, yeah.
Yeah, okay, let's just go on to the next one.
All right, we'll listen to these two together, I would say.
Okay, awesome.
So.
Now, I was surprised to say A Day in the Life has 18 million plays here. Because I don't think I know that one at all, and that's like way more than most of the other songs on this.
If you don't know that one, that'll be cool, because it's a really cool song.
Yeah, as far as I know, I don't know that one. And it's interesting to see that like Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, which really wasn't even a song at all, has the second most plays on this.
Yeah.
Then is Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, and then is With a Little Help from My Friends, and then people stop listening after track 3 because they're all posers and they're not like me and they don't like the Beatles like I do.
Right, exactly.
So they're all posers. But really interesting, though, that the final track, though, is the next most played one. That's very different and interesting.
Yeah.
So, all right, this is this is Sgt. Pepper's going into A Day in the Life. In 3, 2, 1. Oh my gosh. That's got to be a hip hop song that samples this.
Oh, I'm sure.
Or multiple ones. Listen to that weird guitar.
I always like the Reprise version of this.
Cool.
See, which we hope you will enjoy. We hope you did enjoy.
Oh, cool. That's neat. Is this blowing your mind too, then, since you haven't really heard this version?
No, I guess.
Okay, interesting.
I'm not hearing it as like, this is a modern thing versus what it used to. To me, these are just the songs.
Wow. Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's all right.
But that's not what I'm here for. You know?
Right. I definitely like this better than that track 1.
Yeah. It's more energy.
Well, and it's more mixed normal. The bass is in the middle. There's a crazy shaker on the right side the entire time. All right, here we go.
All right.
I hate that you can still hear the previous track. You know, if you just started on that one, it'd kind of be a bummer.
Right, yeah. Which a lot of people probably do.
Yeah. This sounds familiar. This is in a movie. I've heard this in a movie. I think.
This song has a lot of parts, so you may have heard this part, but not the rest.
Okay. Bass is back on the right again, a little bit. Shaker on the left.
I saw the photograph. He blew his mind out in a car. He didn't notice that the lights had changed. A crowd of people stood and stared. They'd seen his face before. Nobody was really sure if he was from the house of law.
Wow.
I saw a film today, oh boy. The English army had just won.
Every song just reminds me of something else I've heard, which is, I'm sure, a testament to their incredible reach in being influential.
But I just had to look, having read the book. I'd love to turn you on.
Whoa. Wow. What? 7, 8, 9,
He's counting
10.
down, I think, or up.
Wow. Okay. Pink Floyd.
Woke up, fell out of bed, dragged a comb
Totally dry vocals,
across my
completely
head.
different sounding thing. But that shaker's still on the left.
Downstairs and drank a cup, and looking up, I noticed I was late. Found my coat
Wow,
and grabbed
weird.
my hat.
Was that supposed to be a dog?
Seconds flat.
I wonder.
Maybe.
Found my way upstairs and had a smoke. And somebody spoke and I went into a dream. I read the news today, oh boy.
God, his voice reminds me of something so much. And it's not the Beatles.
Though the holes were rather small,
Mother, Mother. It's Mother, Mother. It is.
to count them all. Now they know how many holes it takes to fill the Albert Hall. I'd love to turn.
God, are they doing this thing again? Good time to blow my nose if they're going to do that for 40 seconds. It's cool, don't get me wrong. That sound. That's what we heard. That's what we heard earlier. That's that bass harmonica.
Oh, is that?
But we heard that earlier, and I think we heard that on one of the earlier tracks with some like flangy chorus thing on it too, and you were like, what is that?
Okay, I don't know what happens in the last minute of the song. I don't know.
Well,
why.
let's hear if we hear some special surprise.
Yeah.
Even if there's nothing else, and it's just this slowly ringing out, what a shock that would have been back in the day, you know?
Right, yeah.
To take the time and have some... It's going to be gone too soon, though. There's got to be something.
There's the true ending.
Yeah.
I wonder if the... Oh. Oh, that's right. It's like a Chumbawamba ending.
Yes, it is. Bella Donna isn't money. Sad, sad song.
Dude, how great was that?
Talk about a band better than the Beatles, Chumbawamba. But seriously, that so cool. Like
Do you have a better reverence for the Beatles now? If it's based on just from their influence that you've seen from this?
Yes, I definitely think so because
I don't need you to say it's the greatest band of all time.
Right. But the thing is, like, it's so hard for me to believe that this sounds so good. There's no way that it sounded, in my opinion, I don't even know if it could have sounded half this good back then. So like what the things that I'm hearing in this that sounds so modern were the people who were clearly inspired by this, were they like I said earlier, like extrapolating this, what they're doing from this,
hearing that through the mix.
You know what I mean? Like I don't know. Yeah. Like I'm really curious.
A lot of the influence stuff that you were pointing out is like I've heard something that sounds like that.
Oh sure, right, and obviously the Beatles being the biggest band of all time, would influence the most people. So like, but like to me, the things that I like about this are just like I'm shocked because
the mix,
because just like the rawness of how everything sounds, but how dry everything is. The drums sounded phenomenal across the entire album, and I was expecting to not even notice or hear the drums, like. People didn't think about drums the same way in the 60s or even the 70s that they started to in the 80s and then through till now. Like you did not hear the kick and the snare drum as loud as the vocals until the 80s. It just drums, maybe I guess a bit in the 70s, but like with the disco. But like before disco and stuff, like the drums were not a focal point of the song. They were just kind of there, especially in the 60s. And like all the stuff I know from the 60s, like it sounds more like like in a lot of the earlier music was this, but it sounds more like a lead vocalist with an orchestra behind it. Yeah. And maybe there was a drummer, a guy sitting there playing like a trap kit or something, but he sounds like he's fitting into the orchestra, not his own thing that is just as much a focal point as the vocals or the guitar at all. And like the fact that it just sounds so the drums shocked me. But then you take into consideration how crisp and clear and clean and dry everything else sounded. I'm shocked. And the thing is, I think all this, I could be wrong with this, but part of me wants to say the things I'm impressed with here did not exist in the first mix of this.
Interesting.
You know, like I really would be curious to hear an initial vinyl copy of this and see, because like to me, like even when we were listening to those couple mono songs we were clicking through, that sounded just like layers and layers and layers and years ahead of that Pet Sounds album. Yeah. Like it did that album did not sound like this. Everything was kind of mushed together. It certainly wasn't as dynamic at all, you know. And we were listening to a modern remaster of it, but we were not listening to anything that they went back and cleaned every individual track out and mixed it in a modern way at all.
It wasn't remixed.
It wasn't remixed, right? It was just remastered.
It's so rare to see a remix of 60s music.
Yes, and I'm just like, part of me, I've said this multiple times or alluded to it, like part of me doesn't believe that they didn't re-record stuff for this.
Yeah.
Like that I just don't believe that at the time they could have recorded it and had it sound this way. Now, if you told me that they took every single track and ran it through some sort of AI thing to like make it as good as possible, that I would believe, because it just is unbelievable that it sounds as good as it does. Now, maybe the fact that it does sound that good is why the Beatles deserve to be considered the greatest band of all time. You know, like now the thing is,
they were so far ahead of the time they couldn't put out
what they were even recording at the
recording.
time. Yeah, seriously. And that could be, you know, and if you think about it too, like the fact that they were so popular and did have basically, like you said multiple times, money was no object. Yep. So like in the studio, everything did probably sound like this, you
probably,
know,
yeah.
and then they, you know, imagine how crappy you'd feel hearing the album, you know, you get it back and you hear it on your, I would imagine it'd be like today.
Right.
I work really hard on a song, and then 90% of people listen to it on their phone
or
speaker.
You know what it was?
You know
though?
what I mean?
You know how many people were listening to this on AM radio?
Oh God,
there was
with
no
no
FM.
Frequencies. Yeah. Oh my gosh, you're right. True.
You would do that, and then you would go buy the singles, and then you would wear it the hell out, so that it just sounds like crap by the time
you're absolutely
listen to
right.
it for the 1,000th time.
Yeah,
like
you're absolutely right.
But that's just how things were. Like if you hadn't heard anything better, then this probably does sound like the greatest thing you've ever heard.
Right, for sure.
So.
And it's funny you say that too, because like I remember when FM switched to HD radio. Do you remember that when that happened?
I mean,
in like
I know
late
it's a
90s,
thing.
early 2000s.
No, I don't know
say.
if we ever had stations around here. Maybe in Omaha they had them.
No, all radio stations switched to it.
Oh, you think it just got better?
Yes, because I remember when they would go, like I remember them talking about it, because I used to listen to the radio a lot.
Yeah.
And I remember, especially the oldies station, it took them years for them to get everything remastered in HD.
Oh, sure.
And
I remember FM stations that basically sounded like AM stations, yeah.
Right. That's how
all
radio used to sound.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, I remember when that started to happen. And it was like the oldies stations had a really hard time of it because you couldn't just remaster everything. You know, you can't flip a switch. You got to go back and remaster every song individually. And even still to this day,
just mono recordings originally, like all they had was the mono disc.
Oh, sure. But even that still is fine. I'm just saying, like, to have someone with a modern hand touch it and try to make it as good as it could sound. It took them, years to finally get through. Because I remember you would listen to the radio and a certain songs would come on and it'd be like, oh my God, I can't wait for them to get the HD version of this.
Right.
It just sounded so terrible. Yeah. And, and I just, I remember that being a thing, like, and it's just crazy to think that in my lifetime that happened, in the early 2000s or whatever, when they were switching that over. It was literally when TV switched to HD. I remember that happening.
Basically, the first remasters, I would say, are like late 90s on CD. Is when you would start seeing, like, I don't know when the first remaster.
No, it would have been when CDs started, and even probably before that, cassettes. Yeah, I would say yeah.
All right.
Yeah, because I mean they would release albums in the 80s from like the 60s and the 70s.
Would they do much with them?
I'm sure they would. Yeah.
Okay.
Especially once digital recording became a thing.
Yeah, I suppose.
Once digital recording became a thing, they would load all those files and clean them up and add 80s sounds to them and stuff. Yeah.
I feel like this doesn't happen. These sorts of remixes just don't happen to the albums that they should, because those albums are considered untouchable masterpieces.
Yep, I would agree.
And it's a shame because, and I think you'll still, when I was looking at which version to listen to, you had a lot of people saying the new stereo thing is great, you should listen to that. But then there were still some people that are like, no, you gotta listen to the mono version. And it's like,
I'm shocked that people would say that. I mean, I understand people like the thing that they like, and that's fine. But like, this is just like, I wasn't joking before when I said this is like literally one of the best sounding things I've ever heard. Ever. Like, I don't even know if you could make an album today and it would sound like this because it would sound so like, the thing that's special about this that sounds so great to me personally and fits my taste, like I said earlier, when I listen to something like the Black Keys, right, they are using modern equipment and old vintage equipment to try to make something that sounds like this.
yeah,
This sounds so authentically of the time because obviously it was recorded at the time when it was, but like, it's almost like this is the most faithful recreation of a thing from that time that was done now. Like if you told me everything we heard there other than the vocals was re-recorded, I would believe you. 100%. Now I don't think that's true.
There was no way to mix it like this back then.
Exactly.
Or there would be no reason to, at least.
Right. And certainly the like denoising technology wouldn't have existed to clean everything up like this, because the fact that it's so clean is amazing. But the thing that sounds so amazing to me is like the artifacting that happens when you do clean stuff up and when you recorded it over compressed back in the day. Like what the second to last song we heard, but not the Sgt. Pepper's, but the one before that.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. That had that like crazy moment where it was like a kick drum and a like almost like a gong sounding thing, but I think it was just a crash cymbal. It was so over compressed that like intentionally, and like all the drums you're hearing on this album have that very clear like hip hop like sampled drum sound that I love so much, and that the Black Keys has on everything they do and everything, because what they're doing is they're compressing the snot out of the drums, so that when the kick hits, you hear less of the hi-hat, and like they're just compressing the drums a bunch. And there's like certain machines that they used for that, where you would turn on all the settings at once to get this outrageously over-compressed sound. And that's how hip hop is born and created, by running these old jazz songs and stuff through those kind of filters and that compression. But like this has that sound, but I believe that this was all recorded at the time, and I'm shocked. And the thing is, like, it's almost too much for me to believe. I've said that multiple times. Like, it's too much for me to believe that they didn't do so much to this during the remixing process that like it's not the same as it was anymore. Like it's hard for me to, and I'm not just saying the mix. I mean, like these sounds you're hearing are different sounds, maybe not fully re-recorded. But also, if you told me some of it was re-recorded and they're just trying to fake it or whatever, I would believe it. But I'm sure it's not, because people would know that. You could tell.
It's the Beatles. Like, you can't get away with
it. It's the Beatles. But like you said now multiple times, like I don't even know if this is possible with any other band, because the Beatles were so big and because people treasured their stuff so much, that this was saved and is even possible. But like I just can't even. I mean, it's incredible. It's incredible. And the thing I'm really wondering is, will I even like their other albums as much as this? Because if this is like the oldest that they have that has this capability, then what the things I like about this might not be present on their future albums, because it was so at the time more cleanly recorded.
Yeah.
It's sort of the like artifacty over compressing sound that this has to it that I would wonder is not present on their stuff after this, because they just recorded it better at the time.
So Revolver was the album before this, and they did remaster Revolver. That was 1966.
Okay.
It's crazy. It's like 8 months before this album, they put out another Masterpiece album. And then a year later, they put out the White Album, which is a double album. But so I have a feeling, I think the White Album was a little more back to basics with them, with whatever that means at the time.
Okay.
Where you'll get a lot more like just acoustic song, or Blackbirds on that album.
Right.
There's some weird stuff in there. It's kind of all over
Hey
the
Jude
place.
on that one?
No, Hey Jude is on
Wow. Okay. Abbey Road,
I believe.
Okay.
Yeah. And that one's a very long song.
Right, but I know that's like considered like a really good recording.
Yeah, I would think that maybe
by the
Abbey
way,
Road is maybe the next one we should listen to. If I would be curious what people in the comments think, what we should listen to next, if we can post this.
I was trying to think earlier if I've heard anything from around this time that I think sounds this good.
Yeah.
And recently, I think I told you this, I was going back through and I was listening to some CD mixtapes that I made for myself when I was in junior high and in high school.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of fun listening to the very first one I ever made, because that was sort of like, for me at that point, like the greatest hits, like my favorite songs ever.
The greatest
up
songs
to that point. Yeah.
That's cool.
And
that's awesome that you still have that.
But the fun thing about that is almost all of them are old songs from like the 70s and the 60s and the 50s, because that was all the music I knew at the time.
Maybe you should throw together a Spotify playlist and share the link in the Discord of your what is this, like 2002 or something?
Oh no, it would have been like 2000. No, it would have been like 2000, maybe even 1999.
2000? Okay.
Yeah, because it would have been before Yeah, it would have been before Kazaa and stuff. It would have been during Napster time, and it would have been probably even early Napster.
Anyway, so like, what kind of songs were on there?
Well, so what I was going to say was, I have always thought that Magic Carpet Ride by Steppenwolf was like one of the highest quality recordings I've ever heard. Now, I think that's probably from early 70s, if I had to guess. Maybe mid 70s. Yeah. But Born to Be Wild also sounds phenomenal. So I would wonder if Steppenwolf would be a band that could do this.
That was 68. So
Born to Be Wild?
Yep.
Okay, what about Magic Carpet Ride? You need to check that one. Because honestly, like every time I've ever heard Magic Carpet Ride, I'm like, I can't believe this sounds as good as it does.
Interesting.
And I've always wanted
probably the same album.
Same album? That is shocking.
Same year. I think Born to Be Wild might have been from the movie.
Okay.
Easy Rider. So.
Easy Rider, yeah.
But still, same era.
But I've always wanted to listen to that. Whatever album Magic Carpet Ride is on, I've always wanted to listen to that whole album. Yeah. However, back in those days, albums weren't necessarily made as an album. You know, you kind of just made a bunch of singles.
That's what sucks about early Beatles albums too. Is
you know, the
US version is just like, oh, we released two singles which got really big. Let's throw this on the album and take these songs out. It's like they weren't thinking about the album as a concept. You know?
which is a bummer, and that's just not how things were done back in the day, because a lot of people did just buy singles. You know, I mean, that's how it was.
And I think that was part of the influence of Pet Sounds was. This is a genius making an album, you know. I think 67, 68 is around the time that changed.
Right. And that's why I always cite, and I think you can check for me, but I'm pretty sure the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band's Uncle Charlie album came out in 1969.
Yeah. That was 70. February
1970. Okay. And I just recently got Will the Circle Be Unbroken, which I think was 1973. Yeah. But to me, those two albums sound like phenomenal, like as high a quality as you could get at the time. Sure. And I think Will the Circle Be Unbroken is the greatest recording of Americana music of all time. I mean, I don't think there's any question.
Yeah.
And that was all recorded with microphones just set up in a studio. There's no drums on that album, not a single drum. So it's completely different. I mean, it's approached completely different, but like the clarity of everything is phenomenal. And the fact that it was just people standing around microphones is crazy. But Uncle Charlie, I think, still sounds fantastic. Like Mr. Bojangles is on that album, for those of you wondering. And I'm sure most people know that. Like that, it sounds phenomenal.
Imagine being a fan of rock music in 1968 to 1970.
Yep.
Like,
and think about like the
nuts.
Eagles too, right? I think the Eagles had some big songs around that time, maybe a little later. Because I love America, for example, but I wouldn't think of their music as like high quality as this, for sure.
Not necessarily.
But I think also America was a little bit later, like
I
70s.
I think of them more of 70s, yeah.
You know, because like Ventura Highway and Horse with No Name, fantastic, but also the drums weren't really like this. They were more of like a AOR before AOR was a thing, you know. But I don't know. Please, anyone in the comments, let us know. Because we do have sometimes, I will get comments on videos when we ask for people to recommend stuff. Like I was listening to something the other day. Someone recommended, it was on the Pink Floyd. Someone recommended a prog band from somewhere in Europe from around the same time. And I was listening to it and I was like, this sounds phenomenal. Yeah. And it was it was like a remaster of whatever it was. And I started listening to it, and there was saxophones in every song, and so I just dismissed it.
Do you know what band it was?
I don't. I'd have to look on my Spotify. Yeah. Let me look. Just
I'm curious.
I'll look real quick because
is there like a history on Spotify of?
Well, for me, I you can look at recently listened to or whatever, but like for me, I have everything like as in terms of albums.
Oh, okay.
So I just let me just look real quick.
I'm really curious if it's an old album that got a remaster. Like it must have been probably something I know.
I got to go back to pretty far. I think it was when we did that. Audience.
Oh, okay.
It's the band Audience.
A cult British art rock band. Cool.
Okay, go to their album, The Hill House on the Hill. Since we're talking about, let's just listen to like part of the first track. The House on the Hill. This is the one that they recommend. It's from 1971.
Okay.
Jackdaw is the first song.
Okay.
In 3, 2, 1. So there you go. Thank you so much for the person that recommended that, because I listened to about the first couple songs and I just was getting kind of tired of all the saxophones and stuff. Mm-hmm. But I was really, really impressed with the acoustic guitars on that. So,
well, I really hope we can post this video, because now I'm excited to do more and do like weird stuff with the Beatles, like one-off videos of comparing.
I really hope we can too, because.
And I would love to make you watch that 6-hour production documentary too.
Oh my God. Yeah, that would be amazing. We'll have to just see. We'll see. Maybe while we're in the hospital, if this can get posted, maybe we'll do some of that stuff. That's something we could do in the hospital.
And get get Chris on too.
Oh, Chris. Oh, yes. That's my biggest regret, because
it's only me.
Chris is no, it's just like Chris has been with me this whole time and thinking like, ugh, Beatles overhyped, like terrible, whatever. Yeah. And like, and also because like our friend Graham also was, and his whole family are like Beatles lovers, and they're kind of just the kind of people that because they like something, you want to like it even less, but like their music is so clearly inspired by everything we just heard. Now that I've heard that, I'm like, wow, this is just like Sky Piper and Jagajaw and all this other stuff, like shockingly so. Yeah. But also, and I didn't even mention this, but like the Beatles classic, like slap back echo on their vocals, that like, it's such an iconic sound. And pretty sure they did that. Like they may have been the originators of that kind of, not slapback echo in general, because the Elvis did some of that stuff back in the 50s. But like, I mean, when I think of very
60s
associated
bands,
with,
I think of the Beatles.
Yeah, it's very associated with them in particular. Yeah. And so that is such an iconic sound that you hear in so many things. And a lot of rock and roll into the 80s had that slapback sound on it, so very interesting. While we're talking about great stuff and Beatles and stuff, I have to shout out Cliff Richard, who is also a very favorite artist of mine. He did the song Devil Woman in the 72 or 73, I think. Yeah. But he was someone that was kind of following in that wave of Beatles being so popular. Everything from England was like a huge thing. Whatever they called that, the British... He's the British invasion.
The third top selling artist in the UK behind Beatles and Elvis.
Yes. Yeah, he's a huge artist. But like I have in this thing behind me here, which I don't know if people can see. I have in my records here. I have a ton of I managed to find, I'm not going to pull them out, but like somewhere in here I have, I think like 6 or 7 or 8 of his vinyl records. Nice. And he is really cool because he keeps making. I think he still makes new music now.
Oh my God, he has so many albums. Yeah, he just put out one last year.
Yeah, and like he got really deep into like rock and roll. Like, because he was British, just like the Beatles. Like, his music sounds just like this kind of stuff, especially their earlier singles.
59 was his first album. So
yeah, he has an album that's green, I think, that is my favorite of his, that has Devil Woman on it. And Devil Woman is one of my all-time favorite songs. And that's, she's just a devil woman with evil autumn eyes. Beware the devil woman, she's gonna get you from behind.
Apparently that was from 76.
Yeah, you can tell that sounds a little bit more modern than this stuff.
That was like his 25th album.
He's mind blowing. Like he has like 10 sets, 5 album classics or whatever. But like, anyway, I just want to shout him out for those of you watching this that are fans of the Beatles. You probably know of him, but like, he is someone that I fell in love with a while ago, and he really got into that rock and roll in the 80s and stuff. So he has like some very pure rock and roll albums with like somewhat heavy, crunchy guitars, but it's all this like happy, like Elvis songs done like very rock and roll, like when it's very cliche quintessential rock and roll, which is very different than the Beatles, though he had started out very similar to them. So
that's awesome. I mean, I knew that song, but I don't think I've probably ever heard any of his other songs.
I think you would know some of his other songs, but anyway, we're not talking about him. We've talked about so much stuff. We're at 3 hours now. Everybody, you could not have. I would never have guessed that a Beatles album would be in my like top 4-5 best things I've ever heard. I never would have thought
We've
that.
been like putting off the Beatles, and I think part of it was because we just figured Patrick would just crap on them.
Right. Yes, there's probably people who are watching this who haven't watched our other videos and they don't know. Like I did not. I hate Led Zeppelin 4. It sounds awful. It sounds terrible. And if you look at the comments on that Dark Side of the Moon thing, you would think that I hated that, but I did not.
I thought you liked that. So
I did like it. So whatever.
Yeah,
We'll probably
I'm
get
sure
comments on
someone
this
will
too.
find something to hate about this one too. But
Yeah. Well, we talked for all the comments will be like 45 minutes before you get to the first song.
Right,
How
or
dare
we
you? And
talked
I'm like,
over the
well,
music.
we did talk those first 3 songs a lot. And then I was too mesmerized by it to
just
talk over
be
it.
happy. Be happy. Patrick liked a classic.
Don't
album.
worry. Be happy.
Yeah.
Woo.
Yeah. Well,
Don't
this made my day. I'm
happy.
glad. I'm glad we could give you something.
I'm
So,
shocked now. I want if it would be cool to hear instrumental versions of this with no, I don't know if they made that or not. Probably not. That probably would be out of the
I don't know.
the comfort zone of what they were doing, because that would be people would be like, you did this not, how dare you put your finger on the console. But like, yeah, for those of you who don't know, this was touched a lot by people, so but still fantastic, really great. I can't believe how amazing this is. I'm so excited to do more Beatles now. I really, fingers, toes, everything crossed, hope that we can get this video posted.
Yes.
So
Pray to the Apple Music gods.
yeah. And if I'm
Or Apple
disappointed,
Records.
if I'm disappointed with other Beatles stuff that we do, we may have to come back to this with the Chris's, because
Yeah.
Chris Parker's reaction to this would be so mad that it's so good, just like I was, but to a much greater degree. So,
Yeah.
because he spent, I think, a lot of years on his own fighting the battle against, no, the Beatles are not the greatest band of all time. And to have this be like, it's like, okay. Thank you everyone so much for watching. We don't need to prolong this anymore. We will see you all next time.